state at a funeral. He's going to jump in later if he can make it. So long story short, I think we're ready to go. 1, 2, 3. Ready to go, team? Yep. All right, with that, we will call the February 22nd, 2022 Cass County Commission meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Sherling?
I'm here.
Commissioner Breitling? Commissioner Peterson?
I'm also here.
Commissioner Steen?
Here?
Commissioner Capitan?
I'm snowed in, but I'm here.
Matters. Okay, we have a quorum. Thank you, team members, for attending the meeting. With that, Taylor, if you lead us in the pledge, please. Those of you at home, pull up a flag.
Allegiance to the flag of the United
States of America.
to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Taylor. Commissioners, presume you've had a chance to review prior meeting minutes. If so, I'd look for a motion to approve or amend or discuss, please.
Steen moves to approve. Motion to approve.
Moved and seconded. Moved by Steen, seconded by Capitan. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Order of the agenda. I do not believe we have any amendments of any kind. Correct. Okay. I'll look for a motion to approve the order of the agenda, please.
Motion to approve.
Sherling motion, Capitan second. Any discussion on the motion? If not, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Consent agenda. Commissioners, we had a chance to review the prior consent agenda as distributed accordingly. Looking for some discussion, a motion.
Sherling moves to approve the consent agenda.
Is there a second, please?
Steen second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Any discussion on the motion? Any discussion? If not, roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Capitan?
Yes.
Commissioner Steen?
Yeah.
Commissioner Sherling?
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson?
Yes. Motion passes. Thank you, everybody. Now is the time, if you are not on the agenda, to address the commission. If for whatever reason you have something to discuss, now is the time to do that. Again, if you are not on the agenda previously. And I'm going to look through our friends that are attending virtually. And I don't see anyone. Okay, with that, we'll move on to our regular agenda. Mask policy update, Mr. Wilson.
Members of the board, good afternoon. I was asked to bring back a discussion of your current face mask policy to the agenda this afternoon. You've taken a look at this a couple of times over the last month, a couple of months. The current policy has been in place for several months at this point. And again, you are saying that masks will be provided to all visitors entering all courthouse buildings, and visitors shall wear masks provided throughout their stay in a county building. And then there's corresponding language to employees as well. The draft update is the same draft that you've looked at a couple of times before. At previous times, as a board, decided not to make any change and stick with the current policy. And really, the change here, which is provided in your briefing packet, would be essentially to change that to disposable masks will be available, and rather than visitors shall wear masks provided throughout their stay, visitors are encouraged to, and with corresponding language for employees as well, changing shall to encourage to. Again, this is...
Mr. Wilson, if I can interrupt you for one moment. Commissioner Steen, do you have a question, sir?
Not yet.
Okay, thank you. Continue, Mr. Wilson, please.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yes, so I wasn't going to have a whole lot of additional description. I think you've seen this before. You do have Desi Fleming from Fargo Public Health on the phone, and I am available to answer any questions, or you may have questions for Ms. Fleming as well.
Okay. Ms. Fleming, do you want to offer any commentary, or are you just here to listen and answer questions?
I can do whichever you prefer, I guess. Our situation is definitely improving, within our county within our state. So I believe at one time we were close to 30% for a 7-day positivity rating, and now we're down to about 8.99. So we are making great progress. Many people are kind of having the discussions about masking policies and looking, going forward. I know the CDC is supposed to be putting out some updated guidance, hopefully later this week, early next week, where they might be changing metrics, looking more at indicators of, hospitalization, serious illness, and death parameters again, rather than case rates, just because case rates have, the transmission rate is kind of up and down a little bit as well. But I think we're doing pretty well. We're down to 229 cases in Cass County. We are still at the high transmission category for CDC, but we're barely there. So I would suspect by the end of this week we will be down to substantial, which still does encourage masking in those crowded indoor spaces, but definitely going the right direction. So it's totally pertinent to be having some of these discussions.
Thank you, Ms. Fleming. Commissioner Steen and Commissioner Capitan.
Yeah, thank you. I'm going to try to keep this short because we've had the same discussion times on this. Clay County, I think, just passed to basically do away with mask requirements, if I'm not mistaken, for the county at the county level. And with that, I don't want to eliminate discussion, but I'd like to get this on the table. So I moved to amend the Cass County face mask policy as presented.
Is there a second, please?
I'll second that.
Moved and seconded. Commissioner Steen, anything further?
No, sir. Thank
Commissioner
you.
Capitan, please.
No, I was going to make the same motion.
Okay. Commissioner Steen, anything? You got your hand up still. Anything further? We're good.
Just trying to take my hand down. Thank
Thank
you.
you, sir. Any further discussion on the motion or questions for Mr. Wilson or Ms. Fleming? Commissioner Sherling.
Just a quick question for Ms. Fleming. Do you see the current policy that we're adopting changing based on the CDC upcoming change? Do you think that that's going to be a possibility in the near future? Or, how long are we going to have this policy in place?
Well, it's hard to say what that guidance is going to be, but, I certainly do believe we're not done with the pandemic. So from that aspect, anything can change in the future if we would get another variant that is, a little more contagious, a little more causing impacts. But, we're hoping right now that we're going to get a little bit of a reprieve, and then, we can hope that what comes next is not going to be as devastating as what's gone before us. But yeah, hard to say. I wouldn't say never with your policy. I would just, I think it's fine to kind of put things on the back burner, but then pull out things as you need them.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Sherling. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? If not, roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Peterson,
Yes.
Commissioner Steen,
Yes.
Commissioner Capitan,
Yes.
Commissioner Sherling.
Yes.
Motion passes. Mr. Wilson, anything further to add?
Nothing further.
Thank you. Item 2 on the agenda, Casselton tax incentive application. We'll just skip that for today. We'll go right to 3. I'm kidding. Jeez. All right. Mr. Wilson, we're good. Item number 2 on the agenda, Casselton tax incentive. You have the com.
Mr. Vice Chair, members of the board, for your consideration right now is the pilot application submitted by North Dakota Soybean Processors. This is for a development of a soybean crushing facility located in Section 34, Casselton Township. Representatives of the county, including Commissioner Steen and Commissioner Peterson, have worked on this fairly diligently for a period of time with North Dakota Department of Transportation, Department of Commerce, Greater Fargo Moorhead Economic Development Corporation, City of Casselton, Central Cass Public Schools, and representatives of North Dakota Soybean Processors in preparing this application. The application that you are considering today would be a 15-year payment in lieu of taxes in the amount of $230,000 annually on the improvements to the property. Land will continue to generate full tax revenue if approved. Cass County and Central Cass School District would each receive $100,000 per year in revenue generated by the pilot. Remaining taxing entities, including Casselton Township, Soil Conservation District, and the Water Resource District, will receive their normal apportionment of taxes from the pilot. Understand there will be a number of questions and comments to follow up on this. I would point out that the school board considered and approved participating in this pilot last Monday, I believe, on February 14th, and you have representatives of the district with us this evening. Related to this project, you as a board did consider an agreement with North Dakota Department of Transportation on December 6th of last year for road improvements of up to $3 million split between the Department of Transportation and Cass County for roadway improvements to and from the facility, anticipating truck traffic that would be required to access the facility. I've got a number of additional bullet points, but I can run through. But I know there are a number of others who are interested in speaking on this topic, and I can step aside for now or continue if you'd like me to.
Perfect. Just to let everybody know, here's how we're going to do this. We want to make sure that everybody has a chance to speak. So long story short, we'll have the owner's representatives, maybe the EDC, speak first. And then we're actually going to conduct what is a public hearing. And during that public hearing, anyone speaking for, against, or neutral will be allowed a chance to speak. Probably just going to go for or against neutral, just like that. And make sure everyone has a chance to speak. Ideally, we'll keep it to a minimum. I think everybody's going to have, there's a goodly number of people I'm anticipating they're going to have the exact same message over and over, which is fine. We should hear that. But out of respect to everyone's time, I'd like to keep comments to at least a minimum where they're reasonable. So you have a chance to say your piece. You have a chance for us to listen to you, ask questions, but then not run till 3 in the morning. So with that, Mr. Wilson, why don't you continue, and then we'll go to our owners or owners representatives after you're done.
Certainly. Yeah, as we were saying, this this application was delivered to the county by state statute. Any incentive application that runs for longer than 5 years goes for consideration before the county and the school district that has taxing jurisdiction over a parcel. If it were in a municipality, that municipality would also have ability to consider the incentive if it were within a municipality. Since it's not in a municipality in this case, that's why it is the school district and the county that have the ability to consider this. Again, as I mentioned before, we're looking at a 15-year pilot incentive with an amount of $230,000 per year. This again, this will be on this incentive would be on improvements to the property, not the land value itself. And again, I would just reiterate that the commission considered road improvements related to this project at the meeting on December 6th.
Mr. Wilson, anything further? Commissioners, any questions for Mr. Wilson before we jump to our owners? You can see everybody here. All right, not sure who wants to start off. Is it our friends at the EDC? Is it our ownership? What are your wishes, team? EDC it is.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Melissa Beach, Economic Development Director for the City of Casselton. If I can, I'd like to just do some introductions today. I do want to say that I started working on this project in December of 2020. It's been a significantly long project for us, but a very strong project. We're looking at an over $400 million project to crush soybeans, extract soybean meal, and oil. This project brings many strong benefits, including the employment opportunities with above average wages to Casselton. It diversifies the market for farmers to sell their soybeans and processing those beans locally, which means fewer dollars going out of state. Significantly grows our tax base for not only the area, but also, the county as a whole. And then these are all in addition to the economic impacts felt by the other local businesses. These benefits outweigh the potential negative impacts that are being raised, and I'm confident in the process of regulation required by the state and others locally that we will have these questions resolved. As I talked about, I began working on this project in December of 2020. We began working locally with the other local government entities and individuals that would be impacted in July of 2021. Since that time, we've had over 24 in-person meetings and phone calls with neighbors and Casselton and Everest townships. We're at the stage now where they're requesting an incentive from Cass County, as Mr. Wilson alluded to. And he also reviewed the explanation of the school board taking action as well. Attending virtually today, if I can do some introductions, we have Steve Onan. Steve Onan is president of North Dakota Soybean Growers. Eric Slater is the chief operating officer of Consolidated Grain and Barge, who's one of the ownership stakes. Steve Burbrink is the director of business development. And in addition, we have Shar Gust, who's the chairperson of Casselton EDC, also attending virtually today. Shar, also lives on the west edge of the city limits, which is about half a mile from where the facility is to be proposed. Also, Corey Oberlander, Casselton Economic Development, and owner of 2 businesses in Casselton. And Todd McMichael, a kindred area farmer and Casselton resident living on the west edge as well. Attending in person today are Wes Bowen of the Harvest Group. Wes is a consultant representing North Dakota soybean processors. Morgan Fornes is here with Superintendent of Schools, as Mr. Wilson also mentioned. And then the Greater Fargo Moorhead EDC team, Joe Raso and Ryan Oshheim as well. I thank you very much for your time and would welcome any questions you have of me.
Any questions for our EDC team member? Maybe the question I have is, who would like to speak? Is it going to be sort of a running total?
Yes, we would like representatives from the Harvest Group and from CGB to present, and then Greater Fargo Moorhead if possible.
Okay, perfect. I'm just asking, so we have some logistics
Certainly.
behind this. Any questions? If not, whoever's next can
Thank you
step
very
up.
much.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Joe Raso with the Greater Fargo Moorhead EDC. Melissa mentioned about $400 million in terms of the capital investment for the start of this project. If it's voted on and successful, we'll be looking at the largest primary sector project in the history of Cass County with our discussion today. So I want to kind of put that into perspective for everybody. We provided in your packet an economic impact analysis, and I'm going to take a second and kind of walk through that for all of you. Let me see if there's a, can I go back one slide? Or maybe 2. Oh, somebody running that for me, or did I just do that?
Yeah, that one's running it.
Oh, okay, thank you. And this was in your packet, but I want to just highlight a few aspects of it. If you just go forward one slide, please, for me. The 3 key takeaways I'd like to share with you is in this analysis, which, by the way, as the EDC we paid for, this was not asked or paid for by the company. This was something that we try to do on large projects to provide you as elected officials with not just an understanding of the direct impact of that project, but also what we call the full impact, the indirect and induced impacts on that project for our region. So I think it's important to note that. Let's see if we can get that slides back up. There are really 3 key takeaways that I wanted to share is even with the discussion today, this has been incorporated into this analysis. The analysis was completed by Dean Bangson. Dean is a nationally recognized and renowned applied economist. We're just fortunate that he happens to be housed at NDSU here in town to do this analysis for us. So it includes the exemption request that is being made by the company, and that's all factored into this proposal. Another takeaway here is that Main Street businesses in the county alone, we're not talking about other areas outside of Cass County, would see an estimated $30 million of annual sales. Now, there are more sales on the front end of any project like this, but on an ongoing basis, this is outside of taxes that would go to the taxing bodies. This is being spent in our regional economy. And I think really important to note are the wages of these jobs. We know we talk about workforce development as a challenge. So what's really nice here is we're not talking thousands of jobs. We're talking very high-paid, skilled positions that, if you see on that slide, those wages and benefits really can support a full family based on the household income for our county. When we look at the total jobs that this project will generate, there are quite a few ongoing jobs that it's going to support. These are kind of the indirect and induced impacts into our community in terms of jobs. But when you look at the construction activity here, 200 and some construction jobs that will be paying almost $60,000 a year on average for the 2-year period of construction. So considerable there as well. And our sales, and I just want to note that in running back through these numbers with our consultant today, those sales figures are accurate. They're just not accurate for the whole county. Just in our county, it's probably somewhere very conservative, about 60 million a year, upwards to a little over 100 million. So it's not the 800, it's 800 million for the whole market. That's bigger than the county, but just specific. But these jobs are accurate. These wages are accurate based on this third-party analysis. Next slide, please. When you look at the impact to you and the vote that you're making today as county commissioners, we just wanted you to see that this is a positive net revenue to the county based on both the direct and the indirect and induced. And that's looking at the sales and property taxes that are generated through a project of this size into the marketplace. That includes the pilot dollars that you're voting on today in whole, but specific to this slide, the county's pilot payment. And you can see the other ripple effects of taxes to the county. If you take a look at this over 15 years of this pilot, it's still generating about $2 for every $1 of investment. And if you take a look at it over a longer period of time, and by the way, another consultant that we've worked with for a long time, who used to run Deloitte's consultancy globally, did his own research on not this project, but on the question that gets asked is, if a taxing body is going to put incentives into a project, what's the probability that that project's going to stay in that marketplace? And what he found is that lots of jobs, small capital investment, you're under more risk. Small jobs, big capital investment, and the number was over 50 million or more, there's a higher probability that that investment that's being made by that company is going to be used for a long time. So I just want to share that with you because we're talking obviously a huge input of construction equipment that'll be in place for quite some time. If you go to the next slide, please. This is the additional revenue projections for the other taxing bodies outside of the school. There's a slide on that here in your packet. I don't need to go into that. That was shared with the school board earlier last week. But you can also see a direct benefit to the other major taxing bodies, both the water resource districts and the city and townships. Next slide, please. And then this is the last one I wanted to cover. When we talk about this 30 million or 35 million of additional money that's being spent here, it's payroll by employees, it's purchases by the companies and the people who are buying goods from other businesses in the community. You can see how this money is used across the marketplace like ours. And I think this is probably one of the most valuable slides in our conversations that we tend to have with elected officials and others. Is it's really impacting everybody in a positive way in terms of where that revenue is going across all industries within our region. So I just end it there, and I wanted to share with you more than anything what this impact looks like based on the numbers that you're talking about today. And we can confidently say that this is going to have a positive impact across not only our taxing bodies, but across the business community as well. And I'd take any questions that you have now or later on.
Thank you, Mr. Raso. Commissioners, any questions for Mr. Raso? All right. Who's next?
It's not me. So we have, as Melissa mentioned, representatives from CGB on the line. I believe Eric Slater with CGB has a quick slide deck that's going to talk about the project and the companies and the ownership to give the full context.
Perfect. Mr. Slater.
I do. Good afternoon, commissioners. Is there a way we can show the slide deck on the screen? Or can Kelly maybe share her screen and show it?
We're discussing which may be the best attack pattern right now. I think we may share it for you.
Perfect. That works just as well.
Okay. Ryan, good?
Thank you. As Ryan said, my name's Eric Slater. I'm very happy to be here. I apologize I can't be there in person. We made it the whole way to Denver yesterday when United Airlines and Mother Nature turned us around. And our flights were canceled. Everything was canceled into Fargo, and so we couldn't get there. I've been in the grain business for over 30 years. I've lived the last 22 years of my life in Louisiana. And as noted, I'm the Senior Vice President and Chief Operating Officer for Consolidated Grain and Barge Enterprises. This is a really, really exciting project. It's a joint venture between CGB Enterprises and a company called Minnesota Soy Processors. Minnesota Soy Processors is a soybean processing company located about 5 hours southeast of Fargo down in Brewster, Minnesota. They were started, and you could switch to the next page, please. They were started as by a group of farmers who felt in Minnesota they needed to find another market for their soybeans. They originally organized as a 308A and then moved to, as they grew, to a 308B cooperative. Today, they stand at about 2,300 farmer members. They began crushing soybeans in 2003. Then they added an oil refinery and biodiesel production in 2005. They continued to grow where they could handle unit trains in 2014, and oil storage then was added in 2015. I think it's important to point out those last three bullet points because Minnesota Soy is a company similar to NDSP is committed to investing CapEx into growing their business and continuing to improve their business as they grow and prosper. Next slide, please. CGB Enterprises is the other partner. CGB is a 50-year-old company. They started as a barge transportation company in 1969. As the slide indicates, a gentleman named Bob Frayne founded CGB with the entrepreneurial and innovative concept that you could trade barge freight just like you trade grain. And with that, he continued to grow his business. And when you have a transportation company, the first thing that flows naturally is you want to have a product to put into that. So in the early 70s, he had about 3 grain elevators. I joined in 1990, so roughly a little bit later, and they were up to 23 facilities. Today, CGB sits at somewhere between leased assets and different things. They vary, but between 120 and 130 facilities. CGB is located down here in Covington, Louisiana. Next slide, please. CGB is a private company. They have 2 large Japanese shareholders. The one shareholder is Zeno, and the chain would go Zeno to Zeno Grain to CGB. Zeno is one that they go back and forth between first and second or third place with a large French cooperative. They're an agricultural cooperative. I think that's important because they really depend on the United States as their supply of grain. The other large shareholder is Itochu. Itochu is a large multinational Japanese-owned trading company, and that's what they're in business to do. They're over 100 years old, and they trade commodities. They trade steel, they trade fertilizer, and it makes a very nice, diverse balance for CGB Enterprises. CGB has, as the slide shows, over 1,800 employees, and we have about 5 enterprise divisions. We have the grain, the soy crush. We have a very interesting division called CTLC, which is all of our transportation with our barge chartering and our terminals where we handle fertilizer and steel. And we also have an Ag Fi division, where we underwrite property loans in 48 out of 50 states in the United States. It's not really meant to loan working capital. It's meant to loan producers and people who want to buy farmland the opportunity to invest in farming. So as you can see by that, agriculture is very important to CGB's roots. Next slide, please. This is a map of the overlay, and my next slide will show where the plant will sit. But I think this slide is very important because what it does, that gold block down on the bottom, illustrates our truck staging area. We currently are designed to stage over 70 trucks, just stage them. That's a parking lot where we can take them off the roads. In addition, as the trucks move through the plant, we can also handle probably another 20 trucks at a minimum. So there's room for 90 trucks at any given time. This plant's capacity is 135,000 bushels of crush a day. If you're going to crush 135,000, a truckload is roughly 1,000 bushels of soybeans. So that's 135 trucks. So just in staging alone, we are very close to 60% of that staging before we actually are operating. It's hard to tell, but this plant from this map or this print, but this plant will be designed with all the newest technology. LED lighting has come a long way. I know there's been a lot of discussion about how the lights will affect the local community. The goal is to have down lighting, not expansive lighting that goes up into the air. And again, we are going to do everything we can to use the best and most modern technology to be a good neighbor and benefit the community as we should. Next slide, please. This is about a 5,000-foot elevation view, and it shows where the plant will sit. You can see by this view, when you look at this map, that from the center of the plant, there's the big rail loop to the right, but in the center of the plant, to the easternmost property line or the western edge of the town, that's, as Melissa said earlier, that's well over a half mile. It's actually 0.66 of a mile. Again, our goal is to do everything we can to mitigate issues like sound concerns and light. If that means we have to plant tree lines or do things to help reduce that, we fully intend to. The next slide, please. These slides, again, are just an illustration of our business philosophy and our business belief. I will, in the manner of time, I'm going to paraphrase some of them, but the first one, they've always worked closely with the city to control truck traffic. You know, our goal is in no way to cause problems for or into the town of Casselton. We are going to do everything we can to keep trucks out of the town and keep them from going through the downtown areas. We've talked about it. We didn't know till we came up there probably about 3 weeks ago. We've had a lot of different truck traffic routes that have been talked about. Some form of an east-west corridor, west to east to the ingress of this plant, is the preferred manner of road access today at this point. And we appreciate a lot of the good conversations we've had with the community, because until we get there, you always think you know how it should be until you start listening, and then you find out that there's a better way. The second quote, CGB has been a partner to our organization and our ag in the classroom for numerous years. Without them and many other supporters, our program wouldn't be the top tier program it is today. Again, that's just an illustration that NDSP wants to be involved in the community. We want to be a good neighbor. It's very, very important for us to be involved and to be important and valued in the community. The immediate economic impact of higher prices for commodities pumps millions of dollars of revenue into our community. This is a great statement. That's from a mayor in the city of Olney, Illinois. It's a very similar situation where CGB had built a brand new rail terminal pretty much right in the outskirts on the edge of Olney. And I think it's important. I've heard a lot of talk about the tax incentive versus our revenue, because people had found the $80 million profit number that was posted in some of the economic impact numbers that we had put out for public view. Somebody told me it's always easy to make profit on a spreadsheet, right? And that number, I think it's important to remember that $80 million is net, is gross without state and federal taxes. State and federal taxes today are roughly 25%. So if you take an $80 million number and you take that 25% out, you're somewhere low 60s, high 50s. Take the other side, this is a $400 million investment that has at least $100 million in working capital. $500 million, $500 million investment for an annual return of 55, maybe $60 million a year. That's about a 10 to 12% return. That's not excessive, nor is that above average. I think any company, any organization, we try to predict and point out where our best return on investment is going to be. We're very happy with this, but I wanted to address that because I know that's been brought up a little bit. Next page, please. CGB has had a processing plant at the Port of Indiana in Mount Vernon, Indiana for a long time. Their employees have brought many quality aspects to our community with their involvement in our schools, our not-for-profit organizations, and our community support services such as the fire department. Again, it's just an illustration that NDSP and with our prior track record, we are going to be involved in the community. We are going to be an active participant, and our goal is to help make the community better and make the community grow. The final quote, I have lived in Mount Vernon all of my life, and I have been either on the city council or in the mayor's office for over 20 years. In that time, I have never received a single complaint regarding CGB's soybean processing plant. They have always been a good corporate neighbor, sponsoring various sports teams, in particular our youth baseball program. That is from the mayor of Mount Vernon, where our CGB's current bean processing plant is. And again, it just represents if we have problems, we fix the problems, we deal with them, and we're in this for the long haul and to be a good neighbor. Next slide, please. This is a clip of, we have posted several bullet points about our key benefits and what North Dakota soy processors will bring to the table. It's a new value-added market for soybeans in your area. No longer will this part of North Dakota have to depend on the PNW export market for soybeans. The studies show that it can be anywhere from a 5 to 10 cents basis gain for these soybeans. It's a clean, modern plant. It's going to keep the sound, the lighting, and the noise well below regulations, as it should. Just, I didn't mention it earlier, but as I go through these slides, one thing when we talk about the sound, I know sound has been a concern. The plant's going to be double insulated. That's something we've done not only to help retain warmth and heat inside the buildings, but it's also done to keep a lot of that noise internal. The plant's construction process will include approximately $100 million spend in the local area. The economic development folks have already touched on that, so I don't need to beat on that drum anymore. It's a positive impact on land prices, housing values, wages, and soybean prices. North Dakota livestock and the livestock market should benefit from a new supply of meal. Soybean meal is a critical component in many livestock rations, as that supply will now be local. It should help with the livestock market. It'll create 50 to 60 new jobs with above average wages. The $90,000 number was mentioned. I will say that's $90,000. That includes benefits, but that's still a very, very good wage. Significant truck staging. I talked about that. Our goal is to get trucks off the road, and it's also to help the local producers. There's absolutely, with 120 elevators, one thing we know, there's absolutely nothing worse than having your trucks sit in line and wait. Our goal is to get trucks in and get trucks out, make sure they're off these local roads and back to the field where they need to be. And the good jobs will help provide a means for the community and the schools to grow and send people to live in Casselton. So that the next slide, but that is a quick 15-minute recap of North Dakota soy processors. I'm more than happy to entertain any questions. Wes could maybe offer his opinions to the discussion, and then we can answer questions, whatever's best for the commission.
Let's ask our commissioners if they want to ask any questions. Commissioners, any questions? Don't see any. Wes, please proceed.
Thank you, Chairman. Just quickly, I just want to make a couple of notes. The economic impact of all these beans that we're talking about happening in the local and the state community, that currently is now going to China. A lot of that is going to China. So it'd be nice to capture that locally from an economic development standpoint. Also, with this project moving forward, a $500 million commitment to Cass County and the local community from CGB and Minnesota Soy. So that's a significant commitment. For somebody to put $500 million into a community, has to be a community they can trust and a community they know have a long-term positive relationship with. And I'd like to say that the economic development professionals that we worked with on this project for a while have done a wonderful job in creating that confidence in CGB to move forward with a project like this. So I'll reserve any additional comments for later if necessary.
Thank you, sir. Commissioners, any questions? All right, who'd like to go next? Or is that everybody? Good? Okay, outstanding. With that, commissioners, any questions before we go to our public hearing? Questions or comments? Mr. Wilson, anything to add?
Nothing at this time. Happy to answer any questions.
Okay, outstanding. With that, let's open we do have a question. Commissioner Steen.
Thank you, Commissioner Peterson. Yeah, just a clarification. I mean, I know we'll have public comment now, but I'm hoping that we will have also opportunity after public comment to ask questions as well.
I would presume, Commissioner, I would presume so, both during and after, because I think that I like to believe that our public discussion will facilitate further discussion. So that would be my intent.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Thanks.
Any further questions or comments, commissioners, before we open our public hearing? All right, done. Wilson, we're good, yeah? Okay, with that, let's open our public hearing. The way I suggested before is I'd like to introduce anyone to the microphone that wants to speak for the project. In person? No one in person? Okay, I'm going to go virtual. Anybody virtually wishing to speak for the project? You can simply raise your hand and we will discuss. I do see a hand raised. Mr. McMichael.
Yeah, my name is Todd McMichael. I reside in Casselton and have a small farm operation outside of Kindred, North Dakota. And when I first heard about this soybean crush plant, I was very excited about it and did some anecdotal research on it on my own, talking to my friends in southern Minnesota that are able to haul to soybean crush plants and what the impact it has done to their elevators and what it has done for them. And just what it has done in the reduction in the basis. I know the one gentleman said about a 10 to 15 cent reduction in basis, but my friends down by Mankato, Minnesota are saying it's closer to a 30-cent reduction in basis. So this project has made me very excited on this crush plant. I'm very much in favor of it.
Okay, anything further, sir?
That's it.
Outstanding. Commissioners, any questions for Mr. McMichael? Commissioner Steen.
Mr. McMichael, this is Commissioner Steen. Just a question. I don't see a lot of hands up. I see maybe one. And if you're a farmer in the area, you must know other farmers. I don't see a lot of them rushing to the podium or the speaker. Can you share with me your thoughts on perhaps why that is?
Well, I've spoken to a handful of them, and to be honest with you, today is just unfortunately has been a poor day for travel, number one. And I know a number of farmers that are not real good with Teams meetings. I mean, it's just not in their wheelhouse to do a Teams meeting.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. McMichael. Anyone else wish to speak for the project? If not, we'll go to those who are against the project, and we'll go neutral after the fact. Let's start in person, and there's no order necessarily. I don't know everyone's name, so I apologize for that. But let's start in person. Anyone wishing to step to the mic right now to speak against the project? Please step to the podium, introduce yourself for the record. And then, if you're virtual, please just raise your hand. I'll do everyone in person first, and then I'll just go down in the order my Teams meeting has us presented. And if I can, I'll call your name as we proceed down, so.
Before
Sir?
we start, Commissioner, you had a picture of Casselton up there. Can we get that back up?
Catlin, can you bring a picture of Casselton back up? If not, I've actually got it on my screen too here.
I had about 30 people from Casselton say, check that out.
Okay.
In that
It was in
last
the
presentation,
CDG
in the slide presentation, there was a picture of Casselton.
Aerial shot?
Yeah,
It was in the
just the last guy that was talking.
Slide 6.
Oh,
I couldn't see it from back there, and
No, that's
and
okay.
My phone was just going off to be hacked. It's like,
Yep.
I gotta check this out.
that's why we've got the technology we do.
Can you enlarge that at all? Or that-
Catlin, can we zoom in at all? There you go.
Thank you.
All right. Your name, sir?
My name is Greg Kemple. Come here today. I wasn't planning on coming here. I apologize. I don't have a slide presentation or anything. I got some notes. I'm going to talk to you a little bit. I'm a parent. My wife, Susan, and I have 3 kids. 2 of them are at Central Cass right now. I'm going to talk to you about a business owner in Casselton, too.
Are you from Casselton, sir?
I live in Casselton.
Perfect, thank you.
Yes, and I had a lot of people encourage me to come talk to you guys. 25 years ago, I spoke right over here when I was at the other chamber about county commission wanted to change 911 addressing for ambulance, police, and fire, and we filled the chamber with ambulance, fire, and police. That was the last time I came to a commission meeting, so it's changed a lot since then. But the reason I'm here again is because we don't want you guys to make the same mistake. As a parent, we were at parent-teacher conferences last Thursday night and walked through the school, and teachers were mentioning, do what you can to try and stop this. They can't come here to speak. Actually, one of the staff members showed me a picture, how you get water stains in the ceiling? The kids are drawing on them, and I took a picture. I got it I'll send it to you if you want, but a beautiful picture of a big bird up in one of the water stains. There's so many water stains. They said, do what you can to try and make sure this company pays the bills up at the school so they can keep doing good quality education. Last bond issue that was asked for at Central Cass, 86% of the people voted no. We should not be giving tax breaks when they're trying to get money and there's no way to fund it. That's a tax break. That's a tax raise on all of us. I've had about a dozen farmers contact me already saying, hey, do what you can to get your message across. And as a business owner, small business owner for 20 years, I'm not going to be the largest primary sector business owner in Cass County, sorry. I own a small winery in downtown Casselton, probably 20, 21 years now. We didn't ask for the 15-year property tax rebate because you know why? We want to be good neighbors. We don't want to ask for tax breaks because it's not fair to the grocery store. Oh, wait a minute, we lost our grocery store. It's not fair to the hardware store. It's not fair to the drugstore. It's not fair to my neighbors. We have to have a level playing field. For those of you commissioners that drove up and down Casselton researching this, you'll see there's a help wanted sign in every single business, including the school, including City Hall. What's going to happen is once this goes into place, guess where the employees are going to come from? There's not 200 people standing on the street corner in Casselton looking for work. They should have came to Casselton and had a public meeting and said, here's what we propose. What do you guys think? Business owners can't come and speak because they're fear of retaliation. Teachers can't come here and speak. Heck, my own neighbor can't come and speak because he's afraid of the repercussions if he comes here and speak. I already told her I'm going to have repercussions on my business. I think that is not very democratic. I don't think that's what we should be doing here. As I'm listening to this, we hope to have an east-west road coming into this plant. How can you even give a tax break or pass anything when you don't even know the route of traffic that's going to come? Is it going to come from the east? Is it going to come from the west? Or is it going to come from the north? I think there's a lot of questions that have to be answered, and I don't think you guys should rush this at all. Even give 1 cent. When I hear the last speaker say how they're going to be paying federal taxes, they're going to be paying state taxes, what makes the county, the city, and the school district any different than the federal and the state government? They should be paying their fair share. The gentleman said he's never had a complaint about his operation in the last place he's in. Well, I would be honored if I could be the first person to lodge a complaint against the proposed project in Casselton. I'm sorry, but I love to golf. And we don't need to hear that crushing plant or see it or smell it when we're teeing off on number 4. For those of you that have golfed out at Casselton, you look right out number 4. We don't need that. When someone comes to our door and wants to be part of our family, they should not show up with a ramming bar. They should show up with a knock on the door and get invited in and say, we want to be part of your community. Here's what we want to do. Not give this to us or else. No, that's not the way to do things in Casselton. Lumberyard has got help wanted signs. The gas station has help wanted signs. Everybody has help wanted signs. And now you guys are going to give a tax break so they have an unfair advantage against every one of those business owners. My question to you is, what are you going to do for those business owners? Are you going to give them all tax breaks too? No, you can't, because it's not part of our operation. And that is so wrong. That is so wrong for the county commission to sit up here and pick winners and losers. That is wrong. Are we for this project? Yes. The location? No. We don't need that in Casselton. We already have trouble during rush hour at 7:30 and 5:30 with traffic on Highway 18. We don't need to add more semis. There's anybody you can find a study or any type of studies that say that. We have to figure out if we're going to be an industrial town or we're going to be a nice bedroom community where little Johnny can play ball and go to the pool and go to the park. This is going to throw a monkey wrench in all that, and what do we get? What do the residents get out of this? Nothing. What do the business owners get out of this? Nothing. What we're going to do is we're going to lose jobs. We're going to lose jobs. The school's going to lose jobs. Where are they going to come from? Where are we going to get workers? There is not a workforce out there. There's no reason to say yes. I'm open to any questions.
Okay. Commissioners, any questions for Mr. Kemple? Any questions? Just maybe a point of clarification. The county has no authority over zoning in this area. So what gets built is up to the township. It's
the city.
Yeah, a discussion we had with other townships where they wanted us to.
However, the $100 million question is, if they already own the land, why should you give them a tax break?
Yep, but I just want to make sure we knew that we don't have any authority over zoning. If they build it, that's between the township and them. Commissioner Sherling, you have a question, please.
Thank you. And thank you for being here, everyone. Just wondering, you said you got a flurry of text messages. Are you speaking on behalf of other folks, neighbors? How many people are we talking? Just curious. Thanks.
Commissioner Sherling, I'll tell you what, this is a massive hot potato. Okay? What's hard is we're a small bedroom community that's built on agriculture. Nobody is denying that this is a nice project. We're denying that we're saying the location is absolutely rotten. It's rotten for the residents of Casselton and for us to get absolutely no benefit. My neighbor's retired. What's he going to get out of this? He's going to pay more property taxes because they're getting a tax break from the school district. His taxes are going up when you guys vote yes here today. My neighbor across the street has an agricultural related job. They can't speak up because they're going to catch heat from their boss. What's hard is it's people cannot speak freely that, you know what, the smell is not good. Okay, I find it absolutely phenomenal that there's not one farmer that spoke in favor of this today. Not one. I think that it should send a message. Where are the farmers? Where are the people that are going to benefit from this? They know it too. They know it too. We've heard rumblings they're looking for other locations. And I think that's a good encouragement by the county commission voting no, and give them a hint that, yeah, maybe you do want to look for another location. We're on board, but you need to find another location because people love to golf. People love to let their kids play in the yards. Don't take that away from us, please.
Thank you.
Commissioners, any further questions for Mr. Kemple? Commissioner Capitan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question to the gentleman is, there was a farmer that spoke in favor of it, but the land that is in question, how long has that been proposed?
I
Because
found
it
out,
seems to me-
with all due respect, Commissioner, I'm sure it's been for a while. As I don't pay attention to what's going on. I found out from a friend of mine about 2.5 weeks ago that this is coming and you won't believe the stench. That were his words.
I don't know about the stench, but I'm thinking, in looking at the map in its location, I thought it might be a little close to the community myself, but if this has been on the dockets for months, even years, I'm sorry, but you people aren't living under a rock out there.
Commissioner Capitan,
Now you're just beginning to voice your opinion about it at this late date.
Commissioner Capitan, with all due respect, since this project has gone on so long, can you tell me when the first public meeting was?
No, I can't tell you that.
Because there hasn't been any. And for a project that's gone on this long, it's completely undemocratic to not have had any public meetings or hearings about this. We drove in a blizzard to come here today.
That's a question you have to bring up before the people that are proposing the project, not the county commission.
We're just starting to organize because you know what? This should not have ever happened. It should never have gotten this far to have our community. And here's what's interesting. Have they taken into account the devaluation of the property of the residents of Casselton in all these formulas? I haven't heard one bit about that. The $400,000 house on the golf course is not going to be worth $400,000 once this is approved. I don't think you can find an economist that's going to say that.
I got, the other question is, your golf course, is that, excuse me, is that by the map? I can hardly see it, but is that in that section just above is it the Tharaldson ethanol plant?
It's immediately to the east of the properity.
It's right to the end is where T-box number 4 is, just to the right of the end.
Yeah, if you zoom in, Commissioner, what you'll see is a large chunk of green space, sort of an L shape, reverse L shape, I guess. That is the golf course, which I've been on too many times because I stink at golf.
You'll have more stink here pretty soon.
It gets too blurry for me to see from here, but that's fine.
I think once again, we're sort of walking a gentle line between zoning authority and incentivization. I realize there's sort of a dichotomy here, but in the same breath.
Remember the two reasons I'm here.
Yeah.
The business owner, because you gotta treat businesses fairly.
Yep.
And that's not a zoning issue, Commissioner.
No, sir.
And the parenting is not a zoning issue.
And
with the school teachers crying for money.
That, again, that's a school board issue, so.
But you can say, guess what?
I have no authority over the school, sir.
I know, but if you
They have their own vote. So
if you voted, I know, I heard what happened at that school board meeting. It was 4-3, and it was not a roll call vote. How about before the end of the meeting, you ask for a clarification on who voted yes, who voted no? We have a superintendent here right now. I think that's probably in the minutes. And from what I've heard, this is all hearsay. You could ask the
Yep, that's-
superintendent.
I'm writing it down.
That absolutely no one was able to, there was no public input at that meeting.
Okay.
And I think that's grounds to say no, or at least temporarily put this on pause for a month to do some research. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, commissioners.
Any further questions for Mr. Kimple? If not, thank you, sir. Appreciate you. Anyone else wishing to speak against the project? Please step forward, introduce yourself. Yeah, if you want to speak, this is open mic night at the club, so it's whoever wants to come forward and share some information, share their thoughts. This is what we're here for today.
Good afternoon, commissioners. I'm John Watt. I farm out in Cass County, western.
Your last
Cass
name
County.
again, sir?
Watt.
Watt, okay, thank you.
Yep. I heard a 15-minute speech about a good neighbor, and I hope they are. But, and I heard how much money they're gonna make. I heard how much money they're worth. I heard how much money the project's gonna be. To be a good neighbor, maybe you should pay your fair taxes, or at least pay what every other business in town has done. Not that I'm an expert, but I am not aware of anybody who's got a 15-year. They all had 10 years. I think we should be on a level playing field. I'm excited for it to come. I'm a farmer, you know. I'm not excited where it's at, but we could, you know, if you moved it on down the line, that'd be great, but I'm not here to argue that. I'm here to say, let's play on an equal playing field. They have the money. They're ultimately owned by a Japanese company. I'm not so sure we should be giving tax breaks to them, but they are going to generate a lot of money within the community. If you're going to do anything, don't do a 15, do a 10, and personally, I wouldn't like you to have 10 at all, just 0. Make them pay their fair share. I'm not a very good speaker, so I think I'm going to bow out now, but I will entertain any questions.
Okay, and
But,
again,
and I think we have some other farmers on the Zoom. So.
Yep, I'm gonna do everybody in person, then I'll go virtual.
But I mean, the question was raised, how come there's no other farmers here? I think there's some on Zoom that'll talk.
Perfect. And again, just for the audience at large, you don't have to answer questions, only if you want to. There's no rules here that requires that you answer. So you want to take questions if we have some, sir?
I can, but I might not answer it.
Yeah, that's okay. Commissioners, any questions? Any questions? If not, thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you.
Anyone else wish to speak? Anyone else wish to speak? We're super friendly. Open ears.
Are you just taking the against or the neutrals?
This is against. We'll get to the neutrals next.
Thank you.
We'll go, so we did 4 against, then we'll go neutral. Okay, well, I'm going to jump virtual if that's okay. Last call. Outstanding. So I'm going to go virtual now, and I'm going to start with Mr. Ralph Johnson.
Good afternoon. It's actually Ryan Rademacher. I'm chairman of Casselton Township.
Okay, Mr. Rademacher, not Ralph Johnson. Nice. Okay, Mr. Rademacher, thank you. You have the comm, sir.
As a township, we are in favor of this project. We welcome the North Dakota soybean processors here. It's good for our state, county, school district, and community. But we feel that the North Dakota soybean producers need to be more of a positive impact to the community by coming online with their tax liability sooner and paying a reasonable portion of it. We feel that paying a nearly 0 tax liability or 100% tax liability from the beginning isn't reasonable for either party. So we feel, in our example, I believe you got an email from us, a 10-year tax break at a graduated percentage level for those 10 years will save them a 40% tax rate over 10 years. We feel that's reasonable for everybody. The school needs, like they mentioned before, the school needs tax money. The township needs tax money to do their roads, repair their roads. We're going to have 2 years of construction when this place is built that I know our township roads for those 2 or 3 miles are going to get beat up. Townships don't have money to fix those roads. Culvert replacement is expensive. The CGB group, we've met with them quite a few times to iron out a lot of these problems. They've been more than willing to listen to us. And they've been actually a great group to work with. But I feel their tax liability just needs to come on a little bit faster, a little bit sooner.
Anything further, Mr. Rademacher?
No, not that I can think of right now.
Okay, do you want to take questions, sir?
Sure.
Okay, Commissioner Steen.
Thank you, Commissioner Peterson. I did look at the, Mr. Rademacher, I did look at the proposal that you put forth, a number of the individuals from the Casselton Township, and I was, appreciate the effort put into that. And if we were to go with something other than what we have in front of us, I would definitely entertain that proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Steen. Mr. Rademacher, last chance. Anything else, sir? Oh, that's other people. Anything else to add, sir?
No, I don't think so.
Wonderful.
Thank you for your time.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I have a Sam Wagner, DRC, next. I see Mr. Wagner on twice. So.
Hi there. Sorry about that. I was unmuting myself. How are you doing today?
Good.
So
let us know.
I want to just address a few points.
Yeah, sir,
that,
if I may.
Mr. Kemple.
If I may interrupt, apologies. You are Sam Wagner, correct?
Sam Wagner is my
Okay, and where are
name,
you
correct.
from, sir?
I am from Casselton, North Dakota.
Outstanding. Thank you. Sorry to interrupt. You have the comm, sir.
Sorry. So I would like to just very briefly make some remarks on what Mr. Kemple had said. First and foremost, to address the question of where have the Casselton citizens been throughout all this project. I can tell you right now, I live on the northwest side of Casselton. I was never given any notice of this. I read the Cass County Reporter. I work as an organizer for ag and food issues in the state of North Dakota for Dakota Resource Council. So as you could probably guess, I read Ag Week on a fairly regular basis. When we first heard about the soybean project, when it was announced, there were a lot of questions that I had, and I went to the city to try and get answers for them. And the number one response that I got on multiple occasions when I talked to multiple city council members was, I am not sure, that is confidential. We cannot be disclosing that at this present time. And I continue to respond with, okay, when you actually are able to do this, please let us know. And to basically answer your question there, the citizens of Casselton did not get the proper notification with this, in my experience. The second thing that I want to address is the school board meeting. I can attest that I was at the school board meeting, and my father was as well. You'll see him below, Scott Wagner, and he can also attest to this. But when the discussion of the tax break at the school board meeting was brought up, we were basically told that the public can observe this meeting, but we cannot speak in regard to it. So we watched them give their arguments. And I would also like to note that one of the proponents of the soybean plant that was at that meeting actually voted against the tax abatements. So even there were people at the school board meeting that were there and in favor of the plant, looked at their books and said that this proposal of $100,000 a year for the school board is too little. Third, at that meeting too, they addressed in very great detail that they were putting in a $25,000 patch job for their roof, and they wanted to have a 5-year exploratory committee to figure out how to come up with the funds for the money to repair that roof in our schools. In the next sentence, or the next item on their agenda, they were discussing that the Mapleton School District has grown from almost 80 students to about 200. I just want to tell you, I don't have the exact numbers, but it was in the 80s and it was in the 200s in the last 5 years. Those children are going to find their way to the Casselton School District at some point. And within 15 years, I can tell you, not a single one of them will see the full tax money in the near future. We also have an issue at the Central Cass School where we're almost at capacity as it is, even with the expansion of the school. So we need to ask ourselves, is that tax abatement money nearly $700K by my figures? If 61%, the Casselton FAQ stated that around $1.3 million of tax revenue would be available if this plant were built. 61% of that would go to the school. I calculated that that was about $800,000, and the school board recommended that they take a $100K a year. So that means they're leaving about $700K on the table here. The issue that I have is, if the school is in that desperate need of money and they're leaving $700K on the table, how on earth are we expected to vote yes if they ask us for another mill levy? Like, that's completely irresponsible in my opinion. However, the last thing I want to address before I close down here is that there is $1.3 million in taxable revenue. As I said, they were throwing a lot of big numbers at us, telling us how the community would have all of these benefits and whatnot. Okay, let's assume that's true. However, they tell us that if they're taking state and federal taxes and they'll only have, what was it, 40 to 50 million, minus 1.3, you only have 39 to 49 million. And to me, I'm not really seeing how that's much of a difference. Like, if you gave me the choice between having $50 million or $49 million, I'd probably take either one of those, to be honest. So I guess my final closing statement is, I feel that we were kept in the dark in Casselton. We have a lot of issues that need to be addressed, not even counting our school, but our roads as well. And finally, that, even with $39 to $49 million worth of profit, that's still a reasonable return on their investment. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Wagner. Do you want to open yourself for questions, sir?
Yes.
Okay, commissioners, any questions? I do have one thought regarding the estimate of potential taxes. And again, this isn't something I know, this isn't my area of expertise, but generally speaking, broadly speaking, I think we can make a generalized statement regarding what this is going to be. Realistically, whether you build a $200 million plant in the middle of a field or a $120 million tower in downtown Fargo as an example, that full assessment isn't going to be true and full because it's never going to be worth as much. So my example that I always pick on is the tower we have in downtown Fargo that's being built for $120 million. The assessment, when it does come on the tax rolls after 25 years, believe it or not, but after 25 years, will not be at that assessed value. It's not going to be 120 million because what is a giant empty tower in downtown Fargo actually worth? Not 120 million. It's worth 40 million maybe. The direct comparison there is the Radisson. So the Radisson was built in 1982, 84 when I was little, and it was built for roughly $16 million. Its current assessed value after 40 years of growth is about $20 million. Because again, what's a giant empty tower worth in downtown Fargo? Well, 20 million. So when we build this facility, knowing full well there's a goodly portion of it's going to be equipment, excuse me, you're left with simply the buildings. The buildings in the middle of a field are not worth nearly as much as we think they are. And especially when you get to return on investment, you need that capital appreciation over time or you lose the capital appreciation over time. You need the revenue from the product, the widget you're making. Excuse me again. So my number on this, and again, I have my tax director's here, but I don't want to put him on the spot. My number on this has always been about $700,000 gross, and that's for everybody. And again, it's still a big number. It's still an incredible revenue stream for our friends in the township and our friends in the school and our friends here in the county, of course. But there's not going to be a massive windfall of cash for any one of us. The windfall of cash, in my mind, is going to come from the production. It's going to come from the employment. It's going to come from the sales tax. It's going to come from all the things you're going to do within this box. The property taxes simply aren't going to be as big a windfall as I think everyone's thinking. And I look to our friends across the street at Thurlton that just came on the tax rolls. Thurlton was built for $140 million, currently assessed at 72.
140 and it's at 67 million.
Okay, even less, 67. So if you go apples for apples, there's probably your real number. And again, I think they're comparable when you come to the widgets they process. So just some thoughts. And again, I'm no more right than you, Mr. Wagner, but it's just something to think about.
I would just respond to that by saying then, why is the city of Casselton promoting it as a $1.3 million in taxes over long-term periods then would be what my question would be then.
Yeah,
and if they are fudging those numbers, how can we trust them would be the other question that I have.
So two things I can't address regarding what happened at the school board and what the city commission's been doing. I can barely keep my own job in track. So whatever they're doing there locally, I can't speak to, and I would direct you back to them to ask them that. And again, they may be right. Heck, I hope they're right for the sake of Cass County, but probability states historically that you're not going to get 100% assessed value because it's simply not worth as much as it is when you build it. Mr.
Yep,
Wagner?
and I would just say we would want to get what we can.
Yes, sir. You and I are in lockstep with that. Don't think anything different. Mr. Wagner, anything further, sir?
No, thank you very much, and I appreciate your thoughtful questions.
Thank you. Should I go to, theoretically, who I believe is Scott Wagner Sr.?
Yeah, hello.
Welcome, sir.
You hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. I'm going to represent the retired citizens of the city of Casselton. We've lived here for the last 22 years. We moved here for the reason of a small community, and I've enjoyed living here. It's a good community, and we have our ups and our downs, as any community does, with different things. But I'm a little bit discouraged with the leaving as much money as they are on the table for this tax abatement for the city. I sat in on the board meeting with the school board, and it was almost a head-shaking moment as you listen to their begging for money or wondering where money's coming from in one breath, and then saying, well, we're going to give a abatement and only get $100,000 a year for taxes. Now, as a resident and a retired resident, I own my house outright. I pay almost $400 a month in taxes to live in my house. Luckily, I can afford this, but there are a lot of residents that are retired that are not as fortunate as I am. And you are literally pushing these people out of the homes that they live in because they can't afford it. I sat in on a commissioners meeting here just a week ago, and I listened to them say that they're going to, in the next 5 years, have $28 million in updates that the city required, be it sewers, be it water, be it roads, be it sidewalks. And those $28 million are going to come out of our taxpayers' pocket, one being me and a lot of other individuals here in town. And I'm all for, we're in an ag community, I'm all for that we have a ag base business. That's great. But I think that they should be paying their fair share, as I am, and as other people have to pay their fair share. And they're leaving us retired people in a pinch, and that's not really fair to the public of Casselton. So that's my take on a different bend from what my son Sam said. So that's all I have.
Perfect, sir. You open yourself for questions, sir?
You bet.
Outstanding. Commissioners, any questions for Mr. Wagner? And again, you're from Casselton, yes?
Yes, I
Okay,
live
perfect.
right in Casselton, moved here 22 years ago.
Oh, outstanding. Commissioners, any questions? If not, Mr. Wagner, thank you. I don't see anyone else virtually unless Mr.
Thank you.
Rademacher has any further comment. I see some hands still up. Just want to make sure you have a chance to speak if you so choose. Okay. Anyone else virtually wishing to speak? If not, I'll proceed on to my neutral. Last call virtually. Anyone wishing to speak? All right. Neutral testimony. Anyone wishing to speak neutral, please. Again, introduce yourself, and I'll go to neutral online as well after we go in person. So introduce yourself, let us know where you're from, and let us know your thoughts.
My name is Stu Letcher. I'm the Executive Vice President of the North Dakota Grain Dealers Association, and we're headquartered here in Fargo. And just a couple points that we'd like to make as an association. Our association represents the interests of the commercial grain industry, whether it be grain elevators, processors, and we're absolutely not against a project like this, but there are a lot of businesses out there that are going to be competing for that soybean bushel, and there's a lot of businesses that have spent a lot of money to, whether it be a grain elevator or whoever else, that have put millions of dollars into their business to be able to do that efficiently. And the only thing we'd like to have the commission keep in mind is that the most I've ever heard of any of our members for tax abatements is 5 to 10 years is kind of the norm. And generally not 100%, you know, maybe 100% for 5 years, and then maybe a sliding scale after that up to 10. And we just like to make that point that, you know, the business environment should be kept fair. That's all I want to say.
Okay, you want to open this up for questions, sir?
Sure.
Yeah, any questions? Commissioners, any questions? Okay, thank you, sir. Appreciate your time. Anyone else wishing to speak? Please introduce.
Hi, Morgan Fornes, Superintendent, Central Cass School. Just wanted to clarify a couple things just because the school has been a topic of the conversation here. First of all, the reference to the school board meeting, I'd just like to make sure we're accurate in the information there. Is the way the school board operates is there has to be a request to speak or present at the school board meeting in advance. And that was the reason that the chair of the school board did not allow public comment. That's just the process that we follow. And then secondly, in terms of taxes, support for the school, certainly we want as much revenue as we can get. But it's very important to understand that schools are funded two ways. Schools are funded by a general fund levy and a building fund levy. Central Cass does not have a building fund levy. And we are one of the few schools in the entire state of North Dakota that does not have a building fund levy. And as a result of that, we then, they've referenced our roof and some of those kinds of things, we have to pull out of the general fund, which takes away from the primary effort of that, of staffing and programming and so on and so forth, and direct some of those dollars to our building fund. That was the referendum, or the vote that was put forward. Only about 300 people showed up for that vote, which was unfortunate. But I personally, and I think our school board feels that we have to get to a point where we fund the school with both levies, and that currently does not exist. So, getting to that point, I do want to say that we have been aware of this project. We were a part of a meeting many months ago with the Department of Commerce. There were many representatives that were there, and certainly we're excited to hear about the potential of this project. The Fargo-Moorhead EDC has kept us informed over the course of all of this, and in terms of all the economic numbers that you saw, we have to admit that, you know, we're not experts on those kinds of things and have had to lean on our FMEDC and some of the strategies that they put in place. But it is true the school board did vote to support the pilot request. And the reason that they supported that is that historically we have never turned down a request. The school board has not. And as a result of that, we find that that shows intention on our part to support a growing community. And then secondly, what was important about that is typically those companies reinvest in many, many ways in school and community. One example was the Tharaldson plant giving a $1 million donation to the school as we were going through our growth. And that was a huge, huge positive impact. So I do want to just say that we voted to support the referendum, to support the pilot request. We appreciate the negotiation because as we looked at it, we have really zero revenue coming, and the potential of 1.5 million over 15 years was huge for us. And typically a lot of these requests come with very little dollars attached to them during that time. So we saw that as a way to gather additional revenue to support some of our building needs. It's true, we're a growing community. We're going to grow regardless of whether the plant comes. It was purely a financial decision for us in terms of location and permits and things like that. That's not our issue, nor are we experts in that area. We have to depend on people a lot smarter than us for that. But we did support the pilot request and the negotiated $100,000 for that reason, for a financial reason. So with that, I just want to say that we as a school appreciated the fact that we were part of the conversation early on. We had numerous committee meetings that are open to the public that we can gather input. We post our agendas, and as is often the case, it's in the 11th hour, that's when we hear voices. And we don't want to get caught up in the debate that way. Our focus is purely a financial focus on that. So that's what I have to say, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, sir. Commissioners, any questions? Commissioners, any questions? All right, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak on neither for nor against?
I think you've got Brandy Pyle.
Yep, I'm going to do in person first, Commissioner.
Yeah, I think we've got a couple more too.
Yep, we've got some people here still. Right?
Hi, I'm Kevin Carl. I run a large agribusiness based out of Arthur, North Dakota, and I live in Highland Park. So, and I've spoken with many of you. So, I would just like to say we're really neutral on the project. We're happy that CGB is going to come invest in the community. There's soybeans to come get. Cass County is the #1 soybean growing county most years in the state. We currently buy those. And we're excited to see somebody coming for some value-adding processing. I can see how the EDC really wants the project, and anytime you have new steel going in the ground and new investment, it's a good thing for everybody. Now, there will be some winners and losers as all business transactions happen, and that's fine. I think somebody in the business community is fine handling that. But I just want to revert back to paying taxes is a privilege. So whether it's looking at your ROI, federal, state, you reduce it, however you want to come back to your assessment, and then being a good community member, I think we're extremely proud of the taxes that we pay. We're one of the larger taxpayers in Cass County, proud of that. In rural Cass County, we're proud of that. And I think that just as personally, I think that, something, as Stu said, that's more along the lines of what other businesses have gotten is probably more realistic. So, that's really all I have, but I just wanted to say that we're pro the plant. We're happy CGB's coming. I don't want to create any negative feelings on it, but I've also spoken privately to people about that, so I wanted to be public about, hey, we feel like, yes, the county should see a higher property tax levy on this, whether it's 5 years, that's the number I had in my head. That would be more along the lines of other agribusiness investments. It creates a level playing field, and it keeps consistency with future investment, because now what you set yourself up for is you set yourself up for a longer term process of what happens if something gets built in Kindred in 5 years. What if a wheat mill gets built in 10 years? Okay, any value add egg processing, do you really want to set that precedence long term? And I want to be extremely clear as an organization and as an individual, I'm not against the plant. I don't care about where it goes. I'm not a Casselton resident. But from a tax standpoint, I did want to, we've heard a lot of comments. The profitability that they've stated is great. I think profitable projects are good for the state. I don't think we should frown upon people trying to make money in our state also. I don't want to look at a project and say, oh, look how much money they made. This is a bad thing. We're very capitalistic. We're very happy. There's going to be value added to everybody up and down the value chain if they're making money. If they are not, it's going to be bad for everybody. However, with that profitability comes responsibility, and I think a good business owner and a good Republican would agree to that. And so I'm asking the commission to take that into consideration. So,
Thank you, sir.
yep.
Questions? Open yourself for questions, sir.
Sure.
Okay,
Sure.
commissioners, any questions? Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Anyone else wishing to speak?
My name's Alex Richard, Maple River Grain. We're about a mile away from the proposed site. Kind of want to speak similar to Kevin. We are definitely a neutral party in this. When they do get built, we do look forward to working with CGB and Minnesota soybean processors to work with them. They are building on a short line railroad that does a lot of local movement, and we are on that. We do a lot of that every day. So it does give another outlet for beans for us, and we work very well with Tharaldson Ethanol since they were built in 2008 also. So I do want to kind of echo what Kevin said about the terms. We've gotten tax breaks in Casselton. We've gotten incentives. They've been in the 5 to 10 year range. Seems to be a good way to do it, and we're starting to come back on the tax rolls right now too with some of our projects that we've done. So we definitely look forward to working with CGB in the future. So when they get built. Any questions?
Questions, commissioners? If not, thank you, sir. Anyone else wishing to speak? Anyone else wishing to speak? If not, I'm going to go virtual. All right. Representative Pyle.
All right. Well, thank you for the opportunity, Commission. For the record, I'm Brandy Pyle, State Representative for District 22 and a potential neighbor to the soybean project just down the road. The only comment in listening to all of the debate for and against this project is I truly believe in the value of communication. And because of that, we do have a meeting coming up. I did contact all the stakeholders in the political subdivisions, the company, and the concerned citizens group to sit down in a smaller group to kind of hash out some of these questions that they have and have a real good debate. Unfortunately, because of the 8th blizzard this year, the company representatives were unable to fly in today, but so in visiting with their lobbyists that they have hired, we will be doing that virtually tomorrow morning. Just because I believe that it is important to get the information out as soon as possible. And just with all the timing of everything, that is not anything I can control, but what I can help with is getting everyone to sit down and visit. So that will include the State Commerce, Fargo-Moorhead EDC, the City of Casselton, Cass County, Casselton Township, the state. My colleagues are invited to that. The Concerned Citizen Group and the company proposing the soybean processing plant. So I just wanted to make sure everybody was understanding that with all the conversations I've had with Commissioner Peterson and the Concerned Soybeans Group, that there is a little bit of a disconnect. So we're going to hope remedy that a little bit tomorrow. And I stand for questions.
Any questions of Representative Pyle, commissioners? Thank you much. Senator Weber, I see you on, sir.
Yes, thank you, Chairman Peterson. Yeah, I do have a comment, I guess. You know, I've been told that the investment group has already purchased the land and it's on file at the courthouse. And when we look at the purpose of an abatement or pilot, the purpose of that is to incentivize a group to come to town and invest in a project. And it seems clear to me that if the investment group has already bought the land, they're going to build. It just seems to me we are leaving a fair amount of money on the table, not only on behalf of the school board, but I would think for the county as well. So it just seemed to me, I've heard a lot of discussion about, the 5 and 10 year approach may be a bit more reasonable approach. And I guess I would think that might be something that should be looked at. So for what it's worth, I share that for the group. And thank you, Chairman Peterson, for giving me that chance to speak.
Senator, thank you. Open yourself for questions, sir.
Sure.
Commissioners, any questions for Senator Weber? All right, thank you, sir. Anyone else online wishing to speak? Mr. Wagner, I see your hand still up, sir. Presuming you're...
Yes, I just want to kind of back up just a bit with the plenty of opportunity to respond or to get involved. I read the papers, I read the political side where you have to take and post everything that's happening, be it a town meeting or whatever. And you see the word pilot, and that's all they say. It's just an abbreviation. As a citizen, I wouldn't know what pilot meant. And to get on the board of the school board and get on their agenda without knowing what pilot meant, we didn't find out. I was basically told that day, hey, they're ready to vote to abatement on the taxes that day. And we looked on it and we said, pilot, what the heck's pilot? That's what it was. We didn't know that. And there's no discussion or definition of that abbreviation. And so in response to that, as a citizen, yeah, we've been kept in the dark. It's happened a number of times with different city meetings and school board meetings. And unless you're sitting in their meetings and they're discussing what they're going to put on their agenda, you have no idea sometimes. And it's a luck of the draw if you end up at a meeting and it's something that's important to you. So I just thought I'd bring that up that, yes, we were kept in the dark with the word pilot, and that threw us off, and that made us so we didn't get on the agenda, or we would have been, I guarantee you. So that's all I have. And if you want to rebut that, that's fine. I'll take anything you want. So I'll sit here and listen.
All right, sir. Thank you. Commissioner Capitan, thoughts?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Wagner, a pilot just means payment in lieu of taxes. And then if you hear the acronym TIF, that's
Tax increment fund.
tax increment financing. So it's different than an abatement. An abatement is a lowering of taxes, if that's the way it goes. But a pilot is a payment in lieu of taxes for a period of years.
Yeah, Mr. Wagner, just to share with you, I wish I knew every abbreviation and every acronym. I've been doing this 9 years, and I tell you what, I got about 25% of them. The rest of them, I look at my staff and say, what now? And they say, yeah, here's what that means. Then I nod pleasantly, and we move forward. So
I understand completely. I work for the company of acronyms, Caterpillar, and they have more acronyms than you could imagine at Caterpillar. But as a non-congressman or a non-commissioner or anybody that's in the political field, I had no idea what pilot meant. And so and I'm sorry that they don't give a expanded version. Usually when you use an acronym, you should actually give it the full wording after it so people understand that you're going to use pilot as this term. And we did not realize that at the time. And so whatever documents that they had out there that you could see that was posted publicly didn't mean anything to us as a citizen. And so that was my take on it. So thank you.
all right.
I agree with you 100%.
There you go. You got a commissioner on your side, too.
Thank you.
Perfect. Mr. Wagner Jr., anything? We're sort of off topic here, but we'll let you speak if you got a thought, sir.
Yeah, just so that you know, I'm Sam Wagner. He's Scott Wagner.
Well, there you see. There I see the name.
No,
correct. Right
no junior involved on that
Okay.
one. My grandfather's name is Sam, though.
Okay.
But anyway, yeah, I just wanted to ask, how many people do you think in our county or in maybe even the city of Casselton would you think knows what pilot means if they were just asked off the street? Like they'd probably say, "Oh, is that the guy that flies my plane when I go on my trips?" You know, I know, when you see these acronyms, it's not always easy to find that, So that's just what that's my piece that I wanted to speak real quick.
Perfect, thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak neutral on the project? I don't see anyone else online with a hand raised. So with that, I'm going to close the public hearing.
Also, Dad, click your hand again so you don't raise it anymore.
Thank you. I will be closing the public hearing. Last chance for anyone to comment in person or virtually. All right, with that, the public hearing is closed. Commissioners, we've had a lot of dialogue, information shared with us, some friendly debate and discussion. We clearly have our packets. Commissioner Sherling.
Thank you. Just for clarification, because we've been hearing a lot of comments regarding the location and various issues associated with that. And I know that that's not our purview here, but just for the benefit of everyone else, and I don't mean to put staff on the spot here, but I will. I believe Mr. Benson is online here. Maybe we just find out, is that Casselton's ET area? And if not, who's got the zoning authority?
Mr. Benson?
Good afternoon, Commissioner. This is Jason Benson. That is within the Casselton ET area. So going all the way to the west mile on the west side of where that ethanol plant would be is Casselton's ET.
Okay, so any zoning issues are to be dealt with the city of Casselton as far as what they require.
That is correct. Yes, it goes, so both the zoning and the subdivision or platting would go through the city of Casselton. If it was outside of the ET, then the platting would go through the county and the zoning would go through the township. There may be part of this that is also joint zoning with Casselton Township.
Okay, great. And then I have another question. Thank you very much, Mr. Benson. But this question perhaps would be for Mr. Burdick, if he's there, or Tracy, or who's ever there. If the school board voted to participate and we vote not to participate, I would assume that that means that there's no participation. And then the school board would have an opportunity to go back and vote to do their own pilot. Is that a correct understanding? Could you just clarify that for me?
Yes, thank you, Commissioner Sherling. Yes, that is how it would work. If they voted to participate and we chose not to participate, this pilot would not go through. It wouldn't be effective. So we would have to go back to square one.
And school board could certainly do that on their own.
They certainly could.
And if we modified this proposal, then does the school board go back and modify their proposal, or does it just line up with whatever we do?
I am not certain how that would work, Commissioner Sherling. I know that there is room for negotiation while the commission decides what to do with this proposal. I would assume that it would then have to go back to the school board to approve that same negotiated outcome. We wouldn't want to have two separate. I mean, we would want everyone to be on board with everything here. So that would be my thought, but I can certainly look into that further if you'd like me to do that.
Okay. Thank you. And then I guess, if I may, I just have a comment, or are you still taking questions?
No, the public hearing is closed.
Okay.
This is discussion.
I would just like to say that I haven't had this many emails and phone calls about an issue for quite some time, and it was rather refreshing. We weren't talking about masks. So, but But by and large, I would say I had close to 40 people contacting me, and one person was in favor of this pilot as it is. Everyone else had concerns, but I will say that by and large, the great majority of them were pretty excited and very welcoming to have this project in Cass County, and I would reflect that as well. I think it's an exciting project, and look forward to having it here. But the big issue is just the fairness and equality in paying those taxes, the needs of the Casselton community, the roads. I would point out that we as a commission have already committed significant dollars to pay that road, and I mean, that needs to be taken into consideration here as well, because there will be ongoing maintenance. So just at this point, I cannot support the pilot as it is presented. I'd perhaps look at something else, but I just think 15 years is just too long for me. But excited about the project, and I think it's going to be a wonderful addition to the community. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Steen.
Thank you, Commissioner Peterson. Mary, echo a fair number of what you had to say. The comments I've received have been exactly what you've heard with our community input tonight. Excited about the project, but we've got to find a different way to do it. And so I've heard a fair amount of that. I won't say probably as much as you have, but I've heard my fair share. So the concerns I have, is the county typically stays away from 15-year pilots or 15-year TIFs or 15-year anything. I mean, that's just kind of how we've handled it in the past. And there's, reasons for that, because who knows what happens in 15 years, and we won't be around to worry about it, but, somebody will have to deal with it. The issue here, and I understand with the school district participation in this, and it only seems fair, or only seems unfair. One way you look at it is if, in fact, that the applicant for the pilot goes ahead and builds the project, and then everybody doesn't get what they should. And then the other option of that is because of the change in, or the denial of any type of support. The economic.
Commissioner Steen, we lost you.
The economic benefit.
Commissioner Steen, we
Can you
lost
hear me?
you after denial of support. So if you could repeat what you said.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I don't have the best connection here. So I don't remember exactly where I'm at. Nobody gets anything. My point being is there's significant benefit beyond the taxes that are collected by the different taxing entities. Yes, the rest of the economic benefit was just shown to us earlier. There is what I'd like to do when we're done with our discussion is we've got a proposed pilot in front of us, and probably have to do something with that, take some type of action. I did ask our state's attorney's office if we're allowed to, under this process, to propose a different alternative. And Tracy, correct me if I'm wrong, but they indicated, yeah, we can propose a different alternative, and we don't have to extend things through this process. I was also interested in Brandy's comments about getting a community discussion together to make sure everyone's on the same page and they have a true understanding of what the pilot is, what the impacts are, what the economic impacts are, what the benefits are, what the downfalls are. If that hasn't happened, I think that would be great. I'd love to see that happen in the Casselton area there. And so I think we've got some options ahead of us. Even tonight, I think the options are we can basically take a vote on the pilot request as presented. We can probably take a vote on an alternative, even perhaps the one that was presented to us and discussed by Mr. Rademacher. And I think we've all got a copy of that. I'm not sure who else has a copy of it, or we can, I don't know, and this is a question for Tracy. I don't know if we can actually table this without having to restart the process, since we've already addressed it, and table it for the next meeting, so we all have a better understanding, including the citizens of the Casselton area, what this project means, and we could table it for 2 weeks. But I don't have answers to all of those questions, except perhaps maybe Tracy could answer my last question is, if we table this for 2 weeks, can we still take action on it because it's already been presented in the time frame that we're required to present it? So that's my question.
Yes, Commissioner Steen, yes, you could table this and take action on it. The way it was noticed just to consider the application of the soybean processors for a property tax relief on the project. So the notice isn't specifically for this pilot with these numbers, but it's just for, the notices for property tax relief on this project. And so if the discussion leads to we need more time, I believe we could table this for 2 weeks and come back after everyone gathers the information that they're looking for.
So thank you, Tracy. So I think we have 3 options. Take action on this one, table it, look at the alternative, vote on the alternative, or just move on. So that's my thoughts, but I'm not going to make any motion at this point in time because not all the commissioners have had a chance to talk. Thank you.
Yeah, Commissioner Steen, if I can jump on your gravy train a little bit here. Tracy, with public notice regarding the public hearing we just had, are you sure we can table this? I know we can negotiate, or we can move, we can take some sort of action that doesn't commit us to a dollar figure until after we have the community meeting or garner additional information, but I'm skeptical that we can do anything without resetting the whole process with another public hearing. And again, you're the lawyer, I'm not, but my gut's telling me that we can't do that because of the public hearing.
And thank you, Commissioner Peterson. Yes, this issue has just come up. We've been kind of dealing with trying to research these issues today. That's the best answer that I could find today. There's no harm in renoticing it, right? There's no harm in going through that whole process again if that's a more comfortable position to take. I could certainly research that issue and see if there's anything out there that would dictate otherwise.
You've got 5 minutes. Commissioner Steen, continue, sorry.
Yeah, just as a kind of follow up on that, I'm not sure. I've looked at the alternative presented by Mr. Rademacher. I could easily vote on that tonight, but I don't think all the commissioners have had a chance to take a look at that, or had a chance to ask the questions. I'm more comfortable if the applicant has the opportunity to meet with the people that Brandy suggested, have a meeting, virtual albeit, but have a chance to sit down and have that, face-to-face or virtual, whatever meeting, and talk out some of these issues to make people more comfortable. Because I think at the end of the day, somebody said earlier, there's winners and losers, and hopefully there's gainers, and people who don't lose everything. But I'd like to see this entity come into the Casselton area and be welcomed in there and come in with everybody saying, hey, we agree, here's how we're going to get it done, versus some animosity within the community. And it's not a big community, so I'd like to see it, work through this. And I believe there's a way to get there, and don't think we're that far off. Personally, I think everybody wins if we can get this done.
Thank you, Commissioner Steen. Anything further, sir?
That's it for now, but I'm really never done. So
I know it. Me too. Commissioner Capitan.
Yeah, I would be in favor of, if we can, table this for now and then have Representative Pyle line up a meeting either virtually or in person. I'd prefer in person, but if we could get that done sooner than later and then bring forth, because I have not had a chance to read through Mr. Rademacher's proposal, but I had, about a half a dozen phone calls and about 40 emails. Most of them were against the project, or I'd say they were all for it, but they weren't for the 15-year pilot program. So that's what I've got.
Okay. I see Representative Pyle has her hand up, and again, we're not in the question period, but Representative, we're talking about you a bunch, so I feel it's only right to let you talk.
Thank you, Commissioner Peterson. Yes, this meeting was set up
Your call.
a week or two ago. And so again, it's going to be virtual, but if you want me to extend the email invite to some of the other commissioners, I sent it to Commissioner Peterson. You guys can decide who wants to attend so it doesn't violate any of the open meeting regulations. So, I mean, yeah, so again, communication and the conversation and all that is extremely important to me, especially on this project, pretty much every project, especially when I am sitting in your seats and making decisions, I like to have all the information. So that is what I guess I am attempting to do for this.
Perfect. Mr. Wagner, with respect, we're in discussion and the public hearing's closed, so we're not looking for that. Again, no disrespect here, but we have sort of a pattern we try to follow here, so apologies.
None taken.
Thank you. Commissioners, further discussion?
Yes, Commissioner Peterson, could you have the agenda put back up on the screen? I'm still looking at the city of Casselton.
Okay, we're on it. Just a couple thoughts, just so the public at large realizes sort of a baseline of understanding of how the commission operates, because a lot of you don't logistically understand how we get things done, nor should you understand because it's sort of in the minutia. But to the most part, or for the most part, the only commissioners here that have any kind of information formally given to them is Commissioner Steen and I. The other three commissioners are hearing all of this for the first time. Law does not allow us to have meetings of more than 3 people. And if we have meetings more than 2 people, 3 becomes a quorum. And then what happens is you can't even disseminate individual communications because it becomes what's called a serial meeting, and that's, again, breaking sunshine laws. So that's why you're going to hear some questions that may seem rather raw in their topic. It's because we haven't had a chance to discuss this project publicly up until right now. So there you go. Commissioner Capitan, you have your agendas back up, sir.
No, I'm all done. I don't have my hand up.
Perfect. Commissioners, further discussion? Any further discussion? What are your wishes? Commissioner Steen.
Thank you, Commissioner Peterson. I'm going to suggest, because I don't want to vote on this project and it'll fail. The vote we have only 4 commissioners here. So I'm going to suggest and move that we table the action on the pilot application for North Dakota Soybean Processors LLC until the next meeting. Yeah, assuming that we can, Tracy's, I believe Tracy's correct. We've had the public meeting, we've just tabled action. So I'm okay with doing it this way. So
we have a motion. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Commissioner Capitan, second. If
I think we can
engage my state's attorney, you've had 5 minutes.
So that's my
The advice that I gave you before is the best that I have as I'm sitting here right now.
Outstanding. And I'm going to maybe cut protocol here a little bit because we have people online that could answer us. If we have owners' representatives, does a 2-week delay in this decision cause any tumult with your organization? Or maybe Mr. Reso or our director from the EDC from Casselton. Are you privy to that? I'm sure you're probably not, but I just feel obligated to at least ask.
Assume the company would have to answer that.
Yeah, that's why. Okay, no commentary. We have a motion on the table, discussion on the motion. Any discussion on the motion? If not, roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Peterson?
Yes.
Commissioner Steen?
Yes.
Commissioner Capitan?
Yes.
Commissioner Sherling?
Yes.
Motion passes. So please convey through our correspondence, Taylor, to our ownership group, and I'm sure our team members in the audience will also convey the decision made tonight, or the lack of decision maybe is a better way to say it. I do sincerely thank everyone in the audience that drove through the blizzard. I sincerely thank everyone online too that figured out how to use Teams, and maybe they don't use Teams on a regular basis, so it's not easy for everyone to double click a mouse and figure out what opens up next. So with that, commissioners, anything further? Commissioner Steen. All right, that withdraws. Mr. Wilson, anything further on this?
Mr. Vice Chair, members of the board, I guess the only thing I would want to say is you mentioned earlier that we're limited of how many of you we can have detailed conversations with. There was a question earlier today from Commissioner Steen of could you consider the alternative that was shared with my office and with you late last week. Presented that question to Ms. Peters earlier today, but we did not present the question that ultimately ended up being asked of could action be deferred forward for 2 weeks. And so I would just want to say I appreciate the fact that we really hit you with a question you were cold on, and we tried to anticipate what questions you might have had, and so I appreciate all of the hard work of staff to be as prepared as possible for this discussion, but that was one that I think caught us a bit off guard.
Yep, okay. Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Commissioners, anything further? If not, we'll proceed on to item 3.
Thank you, Chairman Peterson.
Item 3, please.
Oh, yep.
Mr. Fracazzi.
All right. Thank you, Chairman Peterson. Members of the commission, presented in front of you today, we're going to be going over 5 abatements. These are all concerning hotels throughout the city of Fargo.
If anyone wants to learn about abatements in the city of Fargo for hotels, it's super cool and fun.
This is typical when I talk about anything.
All the cool kids talk about abatements for hotels. All right, that's fine. Just go and don't learn about abatements then. Fracazzi, go.
All right, thank you, sir. But yeah, all 5 abatements requests are within the city of Fargo. There's going to be, all the ones that we're looking at today are kind of have the same theme, where they're income-driven requests for the valuation reduction. And as we know, when we review assessments, we like to look at all 3 approaches to value: cost, sales, and income. I'll just start out. We're going to go through each line item and try to get a separate motion. So we'll start out with A, and this is more commonly known as the travel lodge. And again, was able to review the information provided by both the appellant and the city of Fargo. And, you know, there's some really good sales information the city of Fargo was able to pull up on this. And I'm always going to fall back. If I have good sales, that's going to be more support than anything. We base our cost tables on a yearly basis off what we're seeing in sales activity, and everything in our database is it comes from those sales, and the income alone, developing a cap rate can be determined from that sales analysis. And the sales that we're seeing, just being in direct location of that property, are supportive of that. So for those reasons, I'd make a recommendation to deny the abatement request from Travel Lodge, but we do have a representative from Frederickson and Byron that will be that is in the audience today to discuss this property.
Okay. Anything further, Mr. Fracazzi?
Nope.
Otherwise, defer to the owner's representative, please. Step to the podium, introduce yourself, please.
Good afternoon, good evening. David Tibbles from the Frederickson and Byron Law Firm here, speaking on behalf of 3A, B, C, and D. Do have comments on all 4 of those, and certainly want to defer to how you folks want to run this meeting here.
If I can interrupt you, sir.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, Mr. Fracazzi, do we want to just I contend we should let him present, because you're representing all.
That's right,
yeah,
right.
So
and that's what I was about to propose.
That would make way more sense. Let him present on all of them, and then I'll come back to me on any specific questions.
Yeah.
Okay, sir.
Perfect.
Please.
Appreciate that. Okay, so just gonna pull up my stuff here. Like I said, David Tibbles from the Frederickson and Byron law firm. A little bit of a peek behind the curtain here. So 3A and 3D, I'm going to present just some comments on those sort of together, and then 3B and 3C together as well. I essentially work for two ownership groups there. A and D are essentially the same owners. Very, very similar properties. B and C, the properties are not particularly similar, but the issues are as well. And again, they're two similar core ownership group there. I guess I want to start off before getting into any of the substance here. I know I'm slightly exaggerating here, but potentially you've had experience where folks come up here and say, assessing departments are evil. Everything they've done is wrong. Their numbers are wrong, and the only acceptable result here is to accept the valuations presented by the taxpayers in the applications. That couldn't be farther from the truth. That is absolutely not what we're proposing. I'll get into kind of how our position differs a little bit, but frankly, what we're doing here, what I recognize, what my clients, the taxpayers, recognize, is that we're largely presenting information that the assessing department didn't have at the original time of assessment. Now, I know it's kind of unwieldy. This process allows for that sort of thing. We can present information that's now available, and you need to consider that. I'll show you how some options as to how I think that can be done. But that's largely where we're coming from. And then in particular, with regard to 3B and 3C, Paramount and Emerald there, we recognize that the information that the taxpayer is presenting is really just one perspective on the valuation problem, and I'll get into that as well. I'm going to start off real quick just with 3D Gurunivas. The city had recommended actually a reduction on that property from $1.866 million to $1.33 million. Make no mistake, that's not everything that the taxpayer had asked for. But we had an opportunity to actually sit down at the table with Mr. Sponskowski and had an opportunity to talk about it, understood the position that they were coming from, and frankly, we agree. And so I'm not going to spend any time here asking for more. I certainly could, but I'm not going to on Gurunivas. With regard to Yoginivas, though, again, this is the same core ownership group. Our request today, and actually what we had presented in the abatement application, was a request down to $690,000 as a request there. Our request today, frankly, is simply that the same percentage reduction that was proposed and recommended by the city on Gurunivas be applied to Yoginivas. It's about a 29% reduction. That reduction would result in a valuation for the travel lodge, this is that Yoginivas, to $1,073,847. So certainly round that up to $850 if that makes sense there. And really the reason for that is these two properties are about as similar as they come. I mean, certainly no two properties are exactly alike, but these two, they're right next door. They're right off I-29 and 13th in Fargo. Just some quick statistics here. One was constructed in 87, the other one's constructed in 88. One has 64 rooms, the other has 66. And actually, just in advance of the city commission meeting, we had taken a look at, what was the going rate for a room at either of those buildings. Difference of $5, right? So really, they're about the same property there. And our request would be, again, just to apply that about 29% reduction that the city had recommended be applied to Gurunivas, to Yoginivas as well. So that's Gurunivas and Yoginivas, and that's about the sole issue that we see on those. Moving to Paramount and Emerald, I'm going to have a slightly longer lead up here, but certainly please bear with me, and I'll kind of get down to brass tacks in just a moment. Recall when I started off my comments here, again, we recognize that what the taxpayer is presenting here is just one perspective on the valuation problem. We certainly believe it's a perspective that's worth considering. We think that, frankly, you have you have an obligation to incorporate that into your analysis here today. That perspective is an income approach analysis, and that's compared to the cost and sales approach analysis that city assessing staff had leveraged with regard to these properties. Now, I think you can and frankly should incorporate and reconcile all of those together. And the reason I think you can do that is simply because we know that the 3 generally accepted appraisal practices are sanctioned by a state Supreme Court. We have precedent from the state Supreme Court that essentially says true and full value, which is what you'd be setting for property tax purposes, is synonymous with market value. We know that market value means the price that a willing buyer would pay a willing seller in an arm's length transaction. And we know that those 3 generally accepted appraisal practices are a means for estimating that market value. And of course, we have to estimate, right? We know that these properties didn't sell the day before, so we don't have that specific information there. So we have to estimate using the best information we have available. Don't want to dwell on this, but just briefly to sort of set the stage. Those three approaches. Cost approach, right? We're looking at what would it cost to build a substantially similar property. Sales approach. What do recent sales of similar properties tell us about the valuation of these properties? The income approach is essentially a quantification of the income stream that a property represents. Of course, that means something for commercial property, doesn't mean anything for your house. But those 3 perspectives are all valid. No one is particularly more correct or more useful than the others. Now, there are certain folks who have different perspectives on what the primary purpose of each approach would be, but they're all 3 valid ways of coming to that market value. And frankly, you have all 3 of them before you tonight for all of the applications that were presented for Paramount Hotel and Emerald 2019, 2020, and 2021 as well. The city has prepared a largely cost and sales driven analysis, and I'm going to be honest with you, I can't contest that. I certainly can't speak intelligently to that. I haven't prepared a cost approach. I haven't prepared a sales approach. So I think you need to consider those things. I certainly do. They're certainly worthwhile. They're good approaches. They're good analyses. But the income approach is an analysis that is largely missing from what had been presented. And we've prepared one for each of these properties for each of those years. Certainly happy to walk through specifically how we've done those. I can tell you just from a kind of high level perspective, essentially what's happening with each of those income approaches is we're trying to find the net operating income for the property for that year, actually for the prior year, just using prior year data. We're running that through a capitalization rate, which is essentially a representation of a return on investment, and using that to ultimately come up with that market value for that year. There's some science, there's some art in that analysis, and we're always happy, willing, and certainly welcome any sort of market information that you have. I actually have the spreadsheets of our calculation on my laptop here today, so if you have information regarding capitalization rates, we can certainly put that in, and would love to see what would happen there. But suffice that to say that is the perspective that's been provided here today, and I think you really do have a duty to incorporate that in some way in your decision making here tonight. Now, one way that I think you can do that is, for those of you who may be familiar with real estate investing or have seen third-party appraisals, have commissioned that sort of thing, that it's not uncommon for an appraiser to do an analysis on all 3 approaches, and then essentially weight them together, do a weighted average. And I think you can do that. I actually have some suggestions here before me, and Chairman Peterson, I might actually hand you just a copy there. I'm afraid I don't have that up on the screen, but essentially what we've prepared here is just some ideas for, let's say if we were to do just a top one, you'd make my day, a 90% weighting to the taxpayer's income approach and a 10% weighting to the city assessing department's approach. What would come out through that calculation? 90-10, I recognize is probably a probably a big ask. 50-50 is just a straight average of the two. But I think that ultimately what this is showing is a way for you to take all of the evidence that's before you today and make a data supported decision. At the end of the day, that's really what the taxpayer wants in this scenario is simply a recognition that the information they've provided here is valid and certainly worth incorporating.
Oh. Take a peek at this.
I've got a copy.
Oh.
Thank you.
Commissioners, for those of you virtually, just to share, he just handed Mr. Fakazi and I a sheet that basically breaks down both the assessed value versus income portion and then a percentage of those two, deriving a final weighted average. I don't think I'm misspeaking.
That's right. No, that's
Yeah,
right.
so
That's right.
we don't have that in our packet, but that's what he gave me. And if you want to see it, commissioners, both I and Fakazi have it. I'll share this with Taylor just so, regardless of which direction we go, just so you'll have a copy of this for future reference. So continue, sir, and then Commissioner Schilling has a question.
Yeah, maybe just to wrap up on that. Again, this is really just a suggestion here. This isn't any sort of additional information or further refinement of the income approach calculations that we've prepared. It's just simply simply an illustration of how you might go about incorporating the approach that the assessing department had prepared, which again I admit is valid. I'm not taking any sort of any sort of swipe at that. What the taxpayers prepared here is essentially additional information that you have before you today, and I don't know to be honest with you, I don't know what the right answer with regard to these weightings would be. Like I said, 50-50 to me I think you could make a reasoned argument for that. I think you could make a reasoned argument to say let's weight the assessing department 2/3 and the taxpayer 1/3, right? Seeing as how assessing department has two of the three approaches. We've got the other one. I'm certainly all ears on that sort of thing. But at the end of the day, specifically with regard to the Paramount and Emerald applications here today, I think that's ultimately the analysis that needs to be done. And so with that, be happy to answer any questions with regard to precisely how we're doing our calculation, properties, or anything else.
Perfect. Thank you, sir. Commissioner Schirling.
Oh, thanks. I'm hearing an echo. I'll go forward. So under your proposal of having it using the income approach, if you had two identical properties and one of them was full every night and the other one wasn't, maybe it was better run or maybe they paid their employees better and they were able to staff it completely, the income approach would result in two very different property tax rates for those two properties. And that's what I would struggle with. Could you address that for me?
That's certainly, yes, certainly, and that's a valid question. I think I do want to say one sort of lawyerly thing first off, and just with regard to rates, it wouldn't necessarily affect the rate. It would affect the effective rate, I suppose you could say, but ultimately it would present a different value on the property, again, a different market value. And a reason for that would certainly be, an investor sees that as, if an investor has an option between two similar properties, one that's performing better than the other, then of course one has a different market value and that sort of thing. So that's sort of the initial response to that. I think what you're getting to, and certainly correct me if I'm wrong here, is how do you necessarily account for that? What's sort of the appropriate way to account for that? And one thing I would say is with regard to an income-based calculation, there is a tension between what's more appropriate to use in making those calculations, right? Is it property-specific information or is it more market-based, survey-type data? And so, for instance, without going too deep into our calculations right now, sort of the top line number, the top line value that we use in our calculations is property specific, right? We're looking at essentially what is the room revenue that that the Emerald, the Delta Hotel That's Paramount actually, but the Delta and Fargo, what is that seeing itself in that particular year? Essentially, what's the number right from the financial statements? That's what we're using. That's what we're using there. Some folks might say, well, that does present the possibility that a poorly run property could skew that calculation, and that would be an argument for using a more kind of market-based calculation there. So that there is a tension there, but I also think, again, when we get down to it, we're looking to true and full value. We're looking to market value. What is the price that a market participant would pay? And I think specifically with hotels, we'd be looking for that property specific information. The investor would want to know which one is performing well, which one is seeing that fully booked nature every night, that sort of thing. So hope I'm answering sort of all the questions there, but there is a tension there. I'll certainly admit that.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Commissioners, any further questions? Yeah, so interestingly enough, as my commissioners think about things, I looked at your comps. I looked at buying these hotels, which was hilarious. I actually shared this with my partner and said, hey, look what I get to look at. So the one particular in mind, I went for $6,000. And if you're looking at your proposal, these are real numbers. $6,000 a unit for a hotel. Now, that hotel was terrible. Okay, none of us would want to stay in it. But baseline, that was the price it went for, and then you'll have to put remediation in to make it livable. But there were hotels out west, and this is my point in this, is that very same hotel that went for $6,000 a unit was renting out at $100 a night during the Bakken.
Yep,
rockin',
that's right. That's
absolutely
right.
My struggle is when we talk about revenue, whether it's hotels, Best Buy, Menards, I'm a business owner. I had a bad year during COVID. Does that mean my property taxes go to zero? That's my struggle. It's this constant, and I don't know that's right or wrong, but I'm saying my struggle is that it's this constant relooking of things based on what's happening that day. Because I very much doubt that our friends in Minot with the Motel 6 that sold for $6,000 a unit would have willingly said, hey, I am making so much money here, you got to raise my taxes up. And by the way, here's my pro forma. And city commissioners, I need you to raise my taxes tenfold. That's my struggle. I appreciate the spirit of what you're trying to do. And the rationale behind it, because I've owned properties most of my life, of various scales, big, little, whatever. And I would love to have taxes like this, but logistically, I don't think there's any way to manage it. There's just too many. We're too big a town. We're too big a region. So that's my struggle with it. Again, I appreciate the effort, but
I appreciate that background, and I will say, I mean, you bring up a great point with regard to particularly out west. I mean, I myself, just with our practice, we have certainly seen that sort of struggle over the last few years, where folks built hotels in 2012
and multifamily, and townhomes, and single family.
Exactly, and those cities are struggling with that. I guess my response to that is, like it or not, we do have an abatement procedure like this, right? And that provides that opportunity for the taxpayers to come out and say, look, even as far back as largely 3 years down the road, here's the information that we have now, and that's kind of the way it is. Now, I will certainly tell you, I personally, and I think I can say sort of on behalf of my clients as well, I don't think North Dakota has a particularly I don't know that the property tax abatement procedure in North Dakota works particularly well, and I frankly personally would like to see changes to that, but that is the system that we're working with. Of course, that's a discussion for another day and time.
That's our legislature. I do see do you have possibly an owner's representative online? I see a 612-799 number with a hand raised.
That is,
I believe that's for the next abatement after My Place.
Okay, thank you.
I do have one more question.
Yeah, and I was going to say then Commissioner Sherling, please.
Thank you. Just for clarification, you mentioned that you had a 29% reduction, I think, from the city of Fargo, and you were looking for the same one. Could you just expound on that? I didn't quite follow.
Yeah, certainly. So for the Gurunivas, so 3D in the agenda, the Gurunivas LLC, that's the quality suites. city staff, and would certainly yield the floor to them to speak any more detail on that, had actually proposed a 29%, it was about a 29% reduction on that property, largely due to deferred maintenance that was identified when they had toured the property after the application had been submitted. That was proposed to the City Commission. The City Commission adopted that recommendation. We actually asked at the City Commission hearing to have that same reduction applied to Yoginivas. The city did not adopt that, but we still maintain that position, would like to see that 29% reduction applied to the Yoginivas, the travel lodge, that's 3A in your packets there, again, simply because those two properties are so similar. I mean, they're right next door to each other.
Sure. Okay, thank you, that helps.
Yeah.
Commissioners, any further questions? Commissioner Steen.
Thank you. Just another question with that comparison. So you'd like the 29% applied because the one next door had it applied. Does the object property have water damage and significant?
So I think kind of closing. Okay, I didn't
precipitated the 29% reduction.
Yeah, that's right.
On your example, does the property you're referring to have the same type of water damage and deferred maintenance?
So certainly willing to yield to city
No,
staff.
it's just a simple yes or no.
That. Yeah, and I think my response on that is the city had noticed a need for deferred maintenance. You know, I myself haven't set foot in those properties. I will say, in support of the applications, we had actually submitted appraisals done by CBRE. Those appraisals treated the issue of deferred maintenance the same between the two properties. Essentially at $2,500 allowance per room. So that's our perspective on that. Like I said, certainly happy to yield the floor if city staff would like to speak any more to that.
Commissioner Steen, anything further?
Not for me, thank you.
Okay, commissioners, any further questions? If not, go back to Mr. Fracassi.
All right, thanks,
sir.
Chair.
Hold on, Mr. Fracassi, please. Any other questions? Outstanding. Thank you for your time, sir. Mr. Fracassi, your thoughts on what we were told?
Yeah, a lot of things to go over through the discussion, but usually with the blending approach, as Mr. Tibbles is referring to, we got to remember this is mass appraisal process, and we have to treat all properties in the same light. And the city of Fargo has modeled a system for valuation on all their hotels, and they all fit into that same model right now. So any changes to this, if we were to make percentage adjustments for income, that would be kind of an arbitrary decision, and would get away from equalization of properties, which is their number one goal. So to have a fair and equitable assessment. I suppose it should be brought to light in review. I guess we're kind of bouncing over different hotels. Would you just prefer I just do a broad discussion on all four properties? Or?
I think you can generalize. I mean,
okay.
Based on what we were told is approach A versus approach B. So
some of these might be familiar with you. There was the two CBRE ones for the quality and the travel lodge. So I'm gonna refer more to the Delta right now, and the Delta and the Candlewood, because those were recent appeals that we heard at the last year's Board of Equalization meetings. And it was the same analysis. We received the income amounts, which we really do appreciate. We don't always have access to the income for us to be able to look at that. It does help a lot. But Catlin, I don't know if you're available to throw up page 104 from 3B for the Delta. So we go into great detail on all the information that's submitted just to make sure we have, we're analyzing it correctly. And through the income, they do have the room revenue, which is absolutely needed. It doesn't look like we're going to get there in time, but it's missing all the food and beverage. And for those of you that know the Delta, this is a massive facility, hosts many banquets, weddings. And I believe overall on there, so it had $5,260,000 in room revenue, but there's also $3,194,000 in food revenue. That's 34% of their total revenue comes from just the food and beverage. So if you put that back on there and using their cap rates, we're looking somewhere at 18 million just on income alone. But it's just things that we did analyze and we noticed some of those problems, so we just don't feel confident in all the income information that was delivered to us. So I just wanted to make that clear today. I do feel the sales, the local sales that were given to us by the city of Fargo, they validate these assessments, and I feel confident with the decisions they made. I think for A, B, and C, just maintaining their current assessments is appropriate for all the years. And I do feel I trust in their review of the property that they did at the Quality Suites and the deferred maintenance that they witnessed, that an adjustment needs to be made to that property.
Commissioners, any questions? Any further discussion or a motion? Commissioner Steen, thank you.
Thank you. I know you're sitting there alone. Sorry about that.
No, that's okay. Everyone's staring at me during
There
these
was still
hearings.
somebody
now.
online here. Was this
Great.
just the four we had discussions on? That we they make a motion for all four? Is that the idea here?
You could, well, I contend that because we have the same ownership group, same representation, you can make a motion all four, but Mr. Frakazi, I can't.
I would prefer a motion for 4509 through 4515. That would be A, B, and C. And since there was a reduction request or reduction that the city of Fargo did to the quality suites, which is 4516, maybe do that in a separate motion.
So A, B, C to maintain D.
Yep.
Accordingly to match.
To deny the abatement for A, B, and C, yep. And then, yep.
So moved.
Is there a second, please?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Any discussion? Whoops, hold on. Commissioner, okay, thank you. Any discussion? If not, a roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Sherling?
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson?
Yes.
Commissioner Steen?
Yes.
Commissioner Capitan?
Yes.
Motion passes. Mr. Frakazi?
And then for...
you want to do D?
Yeah, for item D, we're asking to correct the 2021 value from $1,866,600 to $1,330,000.
Which City of Fargo is obviously fine with.
Yep.
Yep, okay. Commissioners, what are your wishes on item D?
So moved.
Is there a second, please?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Any discussion? If not, roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Steen?
Yes.
Commissioner Sherling?
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson?
Yes.
Commissioner Capitan?
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you for your time today, sir.
Appreciate it.
Mr. Frakazi.
Okay, moving on to abatement or item D. Item E on here.
Yes.
Yeah. Now we're moving on to the Fargo My Place Hotel. This abatement was sent to us by representatives of Frebstead Law Firm, and I believe a person is in attendance on Teams here today.
Virtually, yep.
Yep, but just give a little background real quick on this 65-room hotel built in 2014. With including the land price, it was built for $3,272,300. In the appeal, they're asking to reduce the value to $1,710,000. The city of Fargo voted on 5-0 to deny the abatement request. Maybe I could just pass it to the gentleman representing Fargo My Place, and then I can go into detail on my review.
Yeah. The gentleman at the 612-799 number, if you could introduce yourself for us, please.
Yes, my name is Christopher Stafford. Am I coming through on audio okay?
You absolutely are. You have the comm. Show us or tell us what you know.
All right, thank you. Like I said, Christopher Stafford, and I'm associated with the Frebstead Law Firm who filed these. I'll admit to feeling a little bit behind the eight ball, watching 4 other hotel abatements just be denied. Because I think there's something here worth discussing from what was just said a couple minutes ago about the idea that equalization is the #1 priority of the assessor's office. And that may well be all fine and good and true. But the statute that we're under here today, Century Code 572301, says all assessments of any taxable property in excess of true and full value in money are subject to correction and abatement and refund. So the question today isn't, were all the hotels screwed up the same way? Because that would be fair, that would be equal, but is my assessment, the My Place Hotel, is the taxpayer's assessment individually higher than what a willing buyer would pay a willing seller if they were both reasonably informed and not under duress, and the other factors that come into play in a market sale? Not whether or not, maybe every other hotel owner should have also filed applications for abatement. They didn't, but maybe they should have. I think it's notable along those lines that there are 5 hotel properties in front of you here today. I didn't realize that was going to be the case until I looked at the agenda earlier today. And that's unusual. I actually took the opportunity to go back and look through several years worth of agendas for this commission. And while I won't pretend that I absolutely spotted every abatement over the last 5-6 years, this is the most of a single property type that I've seen in your history. Last year there was some commercial land. 2 years ago there was a private home and a shopping center. A couple months before that there was a Menards. But to have 5 hotels and nothing else, all coming to you for the same reason, that strikes me as a potential indication that there's a systemic problem with the valuation of hotels that the assessor has applied. Now, whether or not there's a systemic problem or not, I think there's some smoke. Where there's smoke, there's fire, perhaps, on that. But again, I care primarily, and right now you should care primarily about just one taxpayer and whether or not the assessment is excessive for them. And excessive meaning, is this what somebody in the market would pay? I agree with a lot of what Mr. Tibble said, so I won't subject you to repetition. But, the ownership did supply an income approach. We agree that ideally you consider the cost approach, the sales comparison approach, and the income approach. And I'll acknowledge that the assessor has a lot more information than I do. I don't know what my competitors made. I don't know. I don't have their numbers for their income approaches. The assessor does. I can only look at, the information that's available to me in my financials and in the public financial information that's around for the competitive set of my hotel, and try to come to the best estimate of what I think a buyer would pay. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that, to the earlier point on the income approach of, maybe you've got a hotel that's being run by a rock star and one that's being run by an idiot. And those are income approaches are going to come up to 2 very different values. That's hopefully not what we've done here. What we've tried to do, and yes, we've based it a lot on our own financials because that's what we have. But what we've tried to do is average out the performance of the hotel over time, over a 5-year period, and provide all that financial information to the assessor to try to account for the ups and downs that happen in any marketplace, so that we're not saying, it's changing from moment to moment or day to day. And we're not saying that it's changing based on, one manager doing well and another manager doing poorly. We're trying to estimate what a buyer of the market would come in. They'd ask for our financial statements, they'd do some math, and they'd ask themselves, okay, does this look like what we could do? Could we do better? Would we do a little worse? Let's maybe work some give into the numbers, 10% either way, I don't know. And come up with an indication of value. The indication of value that we've come up with after averaging things over time is $1,710,000, and that's what we're asking for under the income approach. Now, with respect to the cost and sales approach that the county has, that the city has, that the city ultimately put together, and that the county assessment relies on. One thing with hotel sales is that they do tend to include a lot of intangible personal property. The value of the flag, the business and goodwill in the community that goes along with being known as the place for conferences or what have you. It also includes a lot of just straight tangible personal property like beds and lamps. And how those things are allocated on somebody's balance sheet usually have a lot more to do with federal income tax than it does with what a buyer would actually pay for the sticks and the bricks. And what we're looking for here is actually what somebody would pay for land and the stuff built on it. I don't know that that's what the sales that the assessor has have taken into account. And I don't have the full analysis of what the county has done. Only the county has the full analysis of what they've done. But unless you're able to take a real effort, and it usually requires taking a pretty close look at the financial statements of separating out the business value and the personal property value from the real estate value, then those sale prices are going to be inflated. And to the extent that the cost approach is keyed to those sales, the cost approach will be similarly distorted. And so that's the problem that I've got with relying on the county's sales and cost approach analysis, particularly when a buyer of the subject property isn't going to care about what it cost to build some number of years ago. The buyer's going to care about how much money can I make in a year off this thing. So, like I said, we've submitted years of financial information, everything that we could. I agree that a holistic view of valuation is the best approach. And I don't think that's what we're getting solely with the county's, city/county's viewpoint. And the issue here to consider today, again, is not whether some hypothetical hotel owner should have asked for higher taxes when times were better, or whether the economy might change and the taxes might change with it. The question is, on February 1, 2019, the date of the assessment, what was this worth in cash money from person A to person B? And I don't think it was worth what it's assessed at. And I think the evidence that we submitted demonstrates that. Thank you.
All right, sir. Thank you much. Commissioners, any questions for our owner's representative? Any questions? Mr. Fracazzi, your thoughts?
Thank you, Chairman. Commissioners. Yeah, the review that we did, I guess, we'll start off with the City of Fargo sales information, and they do take into consideration as much as they can the intangible items. We're not going to receive all that information, but broadly looking at our sales, we typically see about a 15% of that relates to that. So they deduct 15% of the sales price, and that's shown in their cost sheet. You can see an adjusted sale price, and that's what they're using to determine their price per room. With just the income information they'll provided, just as with the similar one, we have sales that do support it, sales that are taken into consideration, what the appellant was bringing up, and we feel no need to adjust this property. It's a relatively new build, 2014. The abatements for the year 2019, so that means the income that they're using are the 3 prior years, 16, 17, 18. 16, 17, that's still some rough years for a new hotel sometimes. They're still getting built up, stabilizing. And based on what we're seeing in the income stream, they might not have, they might have still been going through some headaches of just that first few years of ownership. As you get into 2018, you can see the net operating income got right up there, and it was even supportive of the valuation. And that's even with this facility having a substantially smaller vacancy rate. The vacancy rate's about 20% less than what we typically see in the market. So when we see that, we try to analyze what we can. Is it a management flaw, or what's the issue with it? It's tough to say. It's definitely not bringing in the same amount of people as a typical one, but it was starting to, and then obviously with COVID and everything. But in short, we do feel our valuation supported. We looked at all 3 avenues of valuation, and I would make, or I guess we're just asking that you deny the request for abatement 4517.
Thank you, Mr. Fracassi. Commissioners?
Commissioners, may I make one correction to a misstatement there?
Please do.
We provided financial information for year-end 2016 through 2020, and while yes, one would only want to consider the years prior to the assessment date generally, we recognize that as was just said, the first couple of years can be rocky, and we were on an upward swing. Our revenue went up those 4 years, and then COVID hit and they went down. In recognition of that, the $1,710,000 abatement that we're asking for is an average of all 5 of those years, including after the assessment date. Normally you wouldn't do that, but our best year was 2019, and we wanted to include that in the average.
Perfect. Thank you, sir. Commissioners, questions, discussion? A motion. Commissioner Capitan or Commissioner Shirley. Commissioner Capitan, then Commissioner Shirley.
Yeah, I move to deny.
Is there a second, please?
I've appreciated the conversation, but I second.
Motion and second on the floor. Discussion on the motion, please. Any discussion on the motion? If not, Commissioner Steen. You're muted, sir.
Thank you. Sorry about that. I said this really doesn't pertain just to this motion, but to the actions we've taken tonight. It'd be interesting to have some discussion in the future before we get inundated with more of these. So we have a better discussion. We have a better understanding of the whole issue of the cost. I mean, I understand cost, income, and that type of thing, but in replacement. But it's still an issue of like, what is the appropriate way? What do we see happening around the country, not just necessarily in Fargo and Cass County, how these are being valued. I mean, with the situation, the information we have at hand, I don't think we have any choice at this point but to approve, the motion, because that's how we do this. But I think it would just be kind of an interesting exercise for us to have Paul bring us up to speed what's going on around the country. That's just a side item.
Yeah, so Commissioner Steen, interestingly enough, I shared with our administrator, Mr. Wilson, calendar year plus ago, this very scenario transpiring nationwide, because obviously we went from vacancy rates of 5 or 10 or 20%, whatever the number was, down to vacancy rates of 80%, diametrically opposed to what they were prior. And should any hotelier, which I have good friends, again, I mentioned prior, I looked at buying these hotels myself, the ones that were in comps in the prior 4. So this is something I dabble in every now and then myself. So it would be an interesting study, as you said, to see what others are doing. But we did nationally, on the committees I serve in, have this very dialogue. So we're not the only ones that are having this discussion. And you can argue whether it's fair or not, whether Best Buy made more money, less money, whether I and my business has made more or less, and should that affect my income. But it's an interesting dialogue, and I couldn't agree with you more. Commissioners, anything further? Anything further? If not, roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Capitan,
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson,
Yes.
Commissioner Steen,
Yes.
Commissioner Sherling.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes. Thank you, everyone, for your time on this matter. We'll move on to item 4, Commission Policy Amendment.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate your time. Mr. Wilson.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, the Commission Office received a notice of vacancy from the City of Riley's Acres Planning and Zoning Extraterritorial Jurisdiction Representative Robert Bomert. An application to fill the spot has been submitted by Wyatt Cram. Typically, these are positions that we fill once a year in the summer. This one was just a little bit unusual because we had I would say a motivated person that wanted to fill the spot, anticipating that the vacancy was going to happen, and then in fact the vacancy did happen. So, we wanted to just have that on the regular agenda simply because normally we have a number of similar vacancies that may turn over year to year. We usually bundle them for you at a specific time and have them as a routine business item. This one was unique only in the fact that there was considerable interest both in a resignation from the position and then a desire to fill it fairly quickly. So we received the application. I know Taylor reached out to representatives from Riley's Acres to see if there was any feedback. There was no feedback one way or another. Brought to you, again, regular business item simply because it's a bit of an unusual circumstance the way this one came to our office. And we may have the applicant
very patient,
in the room with us.
Understanding applicant who understands the tumult of public meetings on occasion. How you doing?
I'm good.
Nice. Commissioners, what are your thoughts on this? Commissioner Steen.
Thank you, Commissioner Peterson. A couple of times, Mr. Wilson, you commented on a motivated individual looking to get this seat sooner than later. Can you expound on that?
I would simply say that because that, and that's that's my impression, because I think there were a number of reach outs to Taylor about the timing of this. And again, while it's a somewhat routine transaction within our office of doing essentially a sweep once a year to fill a number of these similar positions, there were a number of reach outs to see how quickly we might act on this one. So the motivation for that, I can't speak to that, but that was just that when we have a request such as this, we like to be responsive and bring it forward to you. Just alerting making the board aware that it was something different than the normal process of how you typically receive these applications.
All right, thank you.
Commissioners, further discussion, what are your wishes? A motion? Commissioner Capitan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move to amend the Commission Policy Manual, Section 4.00, Advisory Boards, and appoint Wyatt Cram to the Riley's Acres City Planning and Zoning Board from the extraterritorial jurisdiction for non-expired term ending July 1, 2024.
Is there a second, please?
Second.
Thank you. Moved and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Any discussion? If not, Commissioner Sherling?
I would just add that I believe we have 3 positions open on the Fargo Planning Commission for anybody that might be out there listening and happen to live in Fargo's ET area.
We're sitting in the audience for 6.5 hours waiting for this appointment, hypothetically speaking. So there's that too. Commissioners, any further discussion? If not, roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Peterson?
Yes.
Commissioner Steen?
Yes.
Commissioner Capitan?
Yes.
Commissioner Sherling?
Yes.
Motion passes. Item 5, vouchers. Commissioner Capitan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have reviewed the vouchers that Taylor had sent me, and they all look to be in order, and I move their approval.
Is there a second, please?
Second.
Moved and seconded. And before our new appointee takes off, sir, thank you for your time. I appreciate more than you know your patience for tonight. If you want to come back next time, it won't be 6 hours. It'll probably be an hour and a half, so way more palatable. We appreciate your civic duty and your sense of volunteerism. Thank you, sir.
Obviously excited to try and get involved.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for being here. We have a motion on the table. Any discussion? If not, roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Sherling?
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson?
Yes.
Commissioner Steen?
Yes.
Commissioner Capitan?
Yes.
Motion passes. Committee reports. Let's start with our auditor. Anything? Outstanding. State's Attorney.
No report, Commissioner Peterson. Thank you.
Nice. Mr. Wilson.
I'll keep it short. Rotational meeting this afternoon, briefed the board on a number of construction projects that are in various planning or operational phases. One element of that also is the funding, obviously. ARPA ARPA funds are likely going to be a big part of some of these projects. A number of us were at the NACO Legislative Conference last week. Got a little more information on the final rules that have now been approved by Department of Treasury for use of ARPA funds. Very positive towards the uses that we are contemplating, and I think it's more work to do, but headed in the right direction on projects. I'll keep it short with that.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Commissioner Capitan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I too attended the DC conference, and my Veterans and Military Affairs Committee, which was basically talked about the homelessness of veterans and how we can better take care of them. And that's about it. That's it for now.
Thank you. Commissioner Sherling.
No report.
Thank you. Commissioner Steen.
Thank you, Commissioner Peterson. Just one item to report, totally not business related. I'm currently trying to visit my daughter and my new granddaughter and her husband. So that's a new granddaughter born last Wednesday.
Holy cow.
So,
congratulations.
thank you. That's it. Big report, but nothing related to the county.
Thank you.
Way to go, Grandpa.
That's right.
Thank you.
Commissioner Me. Well, had Insurance Reserve Board meeting, shared some information with our auditor and Mr. Wilson regarding the potential relationship we may have regarding co-insurance, and it may be going down. We'll see. That's the insurance. When everything explodes, we then have that other insurance to protect us from having to close the courthouse and auction it off. So we'll see what happens. Blue Cross Blue Shield has a different setup than we do, so convincing them what some of the people are doing nationally is a heavy lift. The NACO conference in DC, I give it a 50-50. I've been to better, I've been to worse. I think the COVID aspect was sure interesting. We actually met with both Hovind staff and Kramer staff, which I think we got some good traction on regarding a number of issues. We've sort of been doing a bit of everything. EDC meetings, all sorts of other things. I will not be at the diversion finance meeting, and luckily my good friend Kevin Campbell will be chairing it on Thursday. I've got some personal stuff I have to attend to. I'm going to be cut open tomorrow morning, which sucks, but I'll get better and it'll be fine. So with that, oh, and then, yeah, tomorrow morning, just so you know, the meeting that Representative Pyle was referencing regarding the community get-together, I've copied Mr. Benson and then Mr. Wilson just out of professional courtesy. Mr. Benson will attend the meeting tomorrow morning virtually in Casselton regarding the soybean plant. So we'll have some people in the room, and it should be pretty well attended. It looks as though a goodly number of the people that were here tonight will attend virtually, as well as ownership groups. So it'll be good to get that dialogue going and maybe spread out some of the rumor and fact regarding the number of meetings that we haven't been included. Well, maybe you haven't been included, but the number I have is there have been 38 meetings up until now. Now, not everybody maybe was involved in each one of those meetings or knew about those meetings, but these were public meetings that this ownership group did do, maybe not as much as some people might like, but given the fact MNSP, I drew all the buildings on MNSP. It's my design. I worked on South Dakota soybean processing. I grew up doing heavy industrial work. So the projects that these guys referenced are projects that I personally did. And we did a lot less meetings when those went up than the 38 they've had. So while I can appreciate, again, the need for better communication, and this gets to a higher level from Bismarck to Cass as well, too, which is a dialogue for a different day. That was a train wreck. We can do far better as a state and far better as a community guiding these developers as to who they should talk to. But again, that's a meeting after we get down the road on this one. So with that, I have NACO meetings next week if I'm conscious. We'll see how that all goes. But with that, correspondence.
Hey, Commissioner Peterson, just one last comment on that, if I may.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so everyone should have received a copy of the alternate proposal that was prepared by individuals from the township, Casselton Township, which I believe Everest Township agrees with, or at least that's what their letter said. I would suggest every one of the commissioners take time to read that and come up with some questions.
Excellent commentary.
Thank you.
Correspondence, please.
Correspondence received as of February 18th, 2022, a letter from Allison Topke, Chair of the North Dakota Recorders Information Network, ENDRIN, regarding action taken by the ENDRIN Board to refund $125,000 to county members, with refunds to be deposited into the Document Preservation Fund. Cass County received $23,708 in print revenue and $30,048.13 in document count refunds.
Boom.
Also, a letter from the North Dakota Department of Environmental Quality, Division of Waste Management, regarding a permit for a solid waste management facility in Cass County.
Commissioners.
Move to receive and file.
Is there a second, please?
Second.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Item
Move to
8.
adjourn.
Is there a second, please?
Second.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
We stand.
Good luck, Chad.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Peterson.
We stand adjourned, everybody. Thank you for your patience and a long meeting, but I tell you what, if you haven't gotten texts, I have. There were a lot of happy faces on both sides of this regarding how this meeting could have gone and how it went, as well as a lot of smiles of how we conducted ourselves. So well done, commissioners. See you next time.